Hello? unleash this adventure only to lose all the territories that Armenia has been controlling for 28 years. So he doesn't want this ceasefire to take hold. He needs this, yeah.
Mr. Elchan, you just mentioned that Azerbaijani forces are very close to the city of Susha. Can you explain the geographical position? How much area, as per your claims, how much area have you been able to liberate and how much close you are to the Susha as per your claims? Can you explain the geographical position on the ground zero?
I will try to give you a general understanding because in order to understand the degree of the area which was liberated by Azerbaijan, you have to take into account the fact that under Armenian occupation, we had the region of Nagorno-Karabakh and 7 districts around Nagorno-Karabakh. So today, we have already liberated from Armenian presence the regions of Jabrail, Gubatli, and Zangilan, and the remaining part of Fizuli region. And also, we have also liberated the town of Hadrut in the southern part of Nagorno-Karabakh. And our glorious armed forces are moving towards Shusha. Shusha, just to give you an idea, it's a historical Azerbaijani city, which used to be in history the
Hello, mic testing 1, 2, 3. Why are we live?
सर
We're already live on YouTube.
नहीं सर लाइव नहीं है सर, विनी के अकाउंट पे लाइव करके रखा है सर। वो आप लोग को यहाँ पर सेटिंग करना है ना पीजीएम में, इसके लिए।
Good morning, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm in a different zone. That's why I'm saying good afternoon.
Okay.
Good morning anyway. I'm coming in your zone now.
Okay. Great.
Nervous, right? Good to be nervous.
Yeah,
Very
it is
good.
always good to be nervous before the show.
So which one are you using? Which horrible background?
Me?
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's a bookshelf. It's so nice.
No, the background, news television awards background.
For me, no. So when I move, my face gets distorted. So that is the reason I don't wear.
But normally it gets distorted, right? All our faces get distorted when we move. Excepting eyes can't perceive it. Even when you move in real life, your face does get distorted, by the way. But you don't perceive it. But you perceive it on video. Do you know that?
No.
Okay, you start
because
looking
the
at
first
people
time
when they're moving and you see their face. Look at it the way the camera is looking at it and you'll see their faces getting distorted.
Okay.
And normally also our faces get distorted, by the way. You want to have some cheese sandwiches?
So I'm having my kadha.
Okay, so you're planning to be sick?
No. I have it every day now. It's my morning ritual.
How do you make your kada?
Cloves, pepper, cinnamon, then ginger,
Okay.
and some turmeric, and yeah, that's about it. So I just crush it and then I boil it very nicely.
How can you boil it badly?
Okay. Like I give it a good boil. Okay, there's no bad boil. Okay.
Your new generation is so
God,
funny.
it's
The way
getting
you-
hot.
Huh?
Sorry, what?
You talk so funny, all of you. Instead of saying I boil it for 20 minutes until it boils a lot, I boil it very nicely.
Yeah, right.
So lazy, Ola. All the best to you. I'll get off your face now.
Thank you.
I'm going to be watching it on YouTube or on Facebook.
Okay, sir.
Priyanka, make sure they finish the session on time. Priyanka.
Yes, sir. Yes, yes. Yeah.
If the moderator takes too long, throw him out.
Oh, sure, sure.
No, the session, which is a Jared session. Moderator normally talks too much.
No, I keep texting them. I keep telling them that, 5 minutes
No, I'm
ago,
talking
10
about
minutes
the next session. Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Das. What are you going to say? That it was doctored by the fact that a complaint was filed in that distant little place and by people from Delhi police, so that it could be handed over to the CBI. No, I'm going to propagate there should be no ratings at all of news ever. Just stop reading. Yeah. Yeah. So do it once a year, twice a year. Reach is a parameter, not weekly ratings. No, not necessarily. If a new
Priyanka, we are starting in the next 1 minute.
No, very serious about it will start. Not everybody will start.
Hello?
Priyanka.
Can you hear me? She's on mute. Priyanka, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. We are starting in another 1 minute. Okay.
Okay.
Then we'll play the pre-recording.
Just cue me when to start and I'll go on.
Sure. लाइव करने में कितना लगे 1 मिनट?
1-2 मिनट बस 2 मिनट पहला फेसबुक लाइव करेंगे
प्लेटफॉर्म में कितने लोग हैं पता चलेगा?
कॉन्फ्रेंस ओपन है ना वहाँ पे
कॉन्फ्रेंस यहाँ पर
ये वाला मेरे कमर को दे दे।
यहाँ पर रखना
ये रिसीवर है।
यहाँ पर
रिसीवर है ये डेलीगेट्स।
या वी कैन सी द मोर डिफरेंट नीचे नो फोन दिख रहा है ना
अच्छा
ये
इंजन मतलब शिका कॉन्सर्न है अपना ही सब लोग हैं।
मैं एक मेरा एक रहेगा।
हाँ तीन लोग अपनी
नहीं, मैं सेंटर में हूँ।
क्या हम स्टार्ट मेकिंग द लाइव नाउ?
प्रियंका स्टार्ट कर दो हमें।
हाँ।
Priyanka, you can start.
Okay. morning, everyone. I am Priyanka Pawar, your host for today, and I welcome you all back to the second day of News Television Summit. Brought to you by IndianTelevision.com and executed by ITV 2.0 Productions. Yesterday, we had some amazing and interactive discussions around various topics from news industry, and we have an exciting lineup of discussions for today as well. I would now like to thank our co-powering partner, TVU Networks, for their immense support. We now start our day with a virtual fireside chat with Mr. Jared Timmons, SVP Solutions, TVU Networks, in conversation with Mr. Anil Vanwari, founder, CEO, and editor-in-chief of IndianTelevision.com Group. I welcome you both, and over to you, Mr. Vanwari. Hello, Mr. Pandey. This is Priyanka here.
Yeah, hi Priyanka, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
Okay. So I was told to join 10 minutes early.
Okay. So I think the earlier session is going to end in like 2 minutes. Just a second, sir. Hello? Yeah, yeah.
The timing is of 11:30, right?
Yeah, it will just start.
It should for how long?
20 minutes, 25 minutes.
Family watching on your smart TV at home may be different than the way you want to consume news on your phone, say walking down the street or in a subway or something like that. And so the contextual element of the data can also be utilized to provide further enhancements to the format that you want to see at the right kind of at the particular time. Noise, I don't want to watch. I want to watch what I want to watch. It's a great solution. So it's been fun chatting with you. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we?
Is it over?
No, sir. 1 minute to go.
You told me it's starting now. He's gone. Avinash, idhar aa jao yaar, please.
Yes, Soumitra. Yes, yes. Okay, okay. Okay, okay. Yeah. So starting in 5 minutes, 5 seconds.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, start.
Well, thank you, Mr. Vanwari and Mr. Timmons for the interesting dialogue. And now I would like to invite our next guest, Mr. Avinash Pandey, CEO of ABP Network Private Limited, for a virtual fireside chat in conversation with Mr. Vanwari. Over to you, Mr. Vanwari.
Hey, Avinash, are you here yet, or are you still to join us? Do I see you? No, I don't see him as yet. Can you please make sure he comes on board, because it'll be great to have a person to talk to. So as far as we're concerned, day one was interesting. We covered a lot of ground, ranging from whether news channels need to reimagine themselves in the light of the TRP blackout for the next 12 weeks or next another 8 weeks, whether the primetime formats need to evolve beyond what the channels are dishing out now, whether managements need to change the business models that are prevalent in the news business, and whether cloud and newer technologies are going to allow CTOs to provide cost savings, thus helping the news business, which is for less than 2,000 crores. Day2 had, just a short while ago, Jared gave us a fantastic insight into how multi-channel news networks are popping up all over the US and the world. Influencers are getting into, providing news, and consumers are watching different formats, 4.5 hours of, somebody giving his perspective on what's going on in America, elections, and millions of people are staying glued to that. These new kind of news outlets are challenging expensive legacy news channels. The cost of entry has crashed, and remember, it's coming to your neighborhood in India also. So this is something which Indian news channels, channel executives, managements, and owners need to watch out for also. Now, on to our next session. I have a fantastic guest with me, somebody who I love chatting with every time I get into a conversation with him, Avinash Pandey. So how are you, Avinash?
Absolutely fine, Anil, and thank you very much for calling me up here.
My pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Things are shaping up well for you guys now?
Well, news channels, I think from the post-COVID, there is nothing called post-COVID as we can figure it out. But the first 2 months of April, May lockdown, news channels have come a long way. There is a huge recovery in terms of ADX. Viewership numbers are all-time high. So the business-wise, it's quite an interesting time.
Fantastic. So October, I was told yesterday, Anand was telling me October this year was better than October last year. The revenues are up, ratings are off, but still the revenues are coming in. Is that good news?
That's true, because advertisers who so advertising happens for selling the next month mostly in the news channel. So there was a long lull period because of the lockdown, and I think a lot of advertisers wanted to dispose of their lying inventory, and that's why a lot of advertising happened between the September and October, and that's why it was very, very high. Also, it's a very high viewership season. We have seen a huge spike during the daytime viewing because many people are still working from home, and a lot of consumption, high consumption is happening amongst the female audience. So because the viewership is so high, there was lack of fresh programming in September. October, it started in the GEC. And hence, I think it was a huge opportunity for advertiser to lap onto the opportunity that the new eyeballs being thrown in the month of October.
And do we expect it to continue in November, or is it going to be, because festival is coming up, and will the eyeballs move more towards GECs, or will they be stuck unless we have events, elections are on, etc. So will we see the continuance of spends on news?
See, the November would be, my prediction is that November would be far bigger than the November of last year.
Okay.
Because of Bihar election and also of Diwali, coupled with the IPL final. So a lot of activity is happening right now in the marketplace. Plus also, if you look at it, as Prime Minister has rightly said, that the manufacturing is back into motion, transports of goods and services are back in motion. So a lot of economic activity is happening. And as when I spoke to you last, I think in April, May, and I said that Indian economy, GDP contribution is very high from the domestic consumption. It's a high domestic consumption country. I was speaking to a real estate client the day before yesterday, and he said that while the April, May, June was low, month on month, their sale has grown by over 30%. That means they have already recovered the losses that they may have had in April, June.
That's great news.
Yeah. As I said, a single shopkeeper in Calcutta has done deals in crores, because there is a traffic now. Because at the end of the day, Indians like to buy new clothes, travel to new places. As you know, on the last weekend, when there was a big weekend of Durga Puja, the hotels were sold out all across India. So there is something in us which is higher than the circumstances, which we call the Indianness, and it beats all the odds. So the car sales are up, motorcycle sales are up. So I think November and December, going forward, I think next 5 months is going to be very big for the news genre.
So your perspective is like France has just got into lockdown with the second wave coming up. Do we see something similar? I see it coming sometime in December, January, where we'll have again partial, semi-partial, or maybe full lockdowns coming up, because the second wave is likely to hit us. So that may again result in a slowdown of activity. The stops and starts are going to be continuing.
See, I tell you, there was a second wave already in the Western India. As you can see, Bombay had a wave, but there was no lockdown. What we have learned from our first lockdown is that the lockdown in itself does not work. At that time, the lockdown probably was implemented because there was lack of testing kits, not enough beds in the hospitals. Our healthcare system was not ready. So it actually worked for the government to deliver those kind of arrangements later on. I think the country is fully prepared for the medical emergency right now. And so normal life, according to me, will continue. Theaters are open, schools are getting opened, college exams are happening. I don't think so India is going to go back to the lockdown again.
You prefer the Swedish model rather than the German and French model, where you lock down when cases pop up. The Swedish model is life goes on as it is, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I'm saying that already so many reports are coming that if you go for the antigen testing, you'll find a lot of people actually were infected. They never knew about it. Okay. So I think I don't think so India is going to see another lockdown. That's my understanding.
That's very good. I think it's heartening for a lot of us, because we've been concerned that we might see another one and might see further waves. As it is, wages have been cut across, and spending power apparently is still there, but it's come down. Now, if money doesn't come back into the system, then how do we get the economy chugging forward? So those are the challenges which we need to get resolved. And if you have stops and starts, then how does the businessman plan his the road ahead for himself, whether it's an entrepreneur in news, whether it's an entrepreneur in a small scale entrepreneur or a large company, because that's a challenge that we need to, and you say it's not going to be there, fantastic. So now let's get on to the news business. What's right with the news business in India?
What's wrong? Everything.
There's a perception that there's something that, I believe there's something right and I believe there's something wrong. So what's right with it? Let's begin with that.
Well, if you talk about the demography of India, there is so much happens every day. There is so much to report on. There's so much to talk about. I don't think so any news channel of any size will have dearth of the good stories, interesting stories to tell. So that's the good part, unlike American television, where there is one story that they need to drag on all through the day, or if there is a small road accidents in a local cable channel that they drag throughout the day. India has got so much to report on. It makes the news business very, very interesting. The second very interesting thing, good thing about the news business in India is that Indians have a urge for the information. If you look at even the digital medium, our own digital medium, the kind of YouTube views that we get across the news industry is phenomenal. When you talk about these numbers outside, so there is a huge population which wants to entertain and educate themselves through the information that the news channels provide. Third, the good thing about the news business in India is that it's a very low cost entry for the advertising industry. So if you are trying to sell a product to the masses, on an average, a lowest rung news channel also reaches to about 40-50 million homes in Hindi speaking market. And in a localized market like Gujarat, Maharashtra, Bengal, Madhya Pradesh, Telugu, you have channels which cater to the GRP and the reach level that any GEC can, whose rates are very, very high. And hence it provides a low entry cost model for advertisers to advertise, and thus you can grow and sell more of your products. So I think it gives an ecosystem for all political voices, all kind of aspiration of people, all economic activities. And I think it's an overall a symbol of India's freedom and expression. So that's the good part about being in the news business.
What's bad?
It's a very heavy cost business, high operating cost.
Okay.
The single cost for any news channel today is their carriage cost, which is killing the industry. Despite having digitization, NTO 1, NTO 2, where it is clearly said that X amount of subscriber, if they subscribe, you can't charge any money. Still, the highest cost for any news channel is the distribution cost, which actually kills the motivation amongst the broadcast operators to do huge investment in the content. And that's our core business. If you look at the balance sheet, the least amount of money goes into creating content. And that's the saddest part of this business. Second one is that criticizing anyone does not mean having a critical view on any subject does not mean that you are negating someone's existence or views. And I think news channels need to evolve themselves from cacophony to telling the right thing in right way. I think that is where somewhere in last 6 months' time, what we have seen, the amount of hatred, amount of hate speeches, media trials, and etc. That's the sad part of the business, which I think through the NBSA, which is the News Broadcasting Standard Authority that we have, which is working very fine for last over a decade, is working hard on it to make sure that the content is good for the country, for people. It helps you get informed better and entertain yourself better. And that's the purpose of being in the news business. If you can't improve people's life, what is the point of being in the news business?
No, so as a whole, so you believe that the news industry has been covering India the way it should be covering? Only in the last 6 months you see an aberration, but if you go back, let's say even as 8-9 years ago, we had a similar phase. Some people say this is the darkest phase of the news industry that we are going through. One, oftentimes, certain former editors who've been working in news channels say that news is dictated to the news channels. This is an allegation they have made after they've left the channel, that there is a very little freedom coming from certain forces who are trying to propagate their point of view down Indians' throats. Now, what's your perspective on that?
I can tell you, I have been in this business for over 25 years now. I have never seen any government who will be very happy with what you are doing. Why will they do? Because news job is to being nindak niyare rakhiye for the government, right? And that's what our job is. The line that people have crossed now is to carrying one side agenda, dividing, and not everybody is doing. There are some people who are doing it, and creating stories through media trials. I think that is the biggest harm that one can do to the news business. And I firmly believe that you must do investigating reporting. I firmly believe that you must do hardcore, deep research journalism. That nobody should stop you from doing it. But if one issue alone, without any basis, becomes the talking point for the news networks for 3 months, and rest all the issues of unemployment, flood, corona, festivals, joblessness, and etc., it takes a backseat. I think that would be the sad part for being in news journalism.
What's the sad part? Almost everyone, including your network, everyone's network was chasing one story for so long. What went wrong?
Not true. That's not true. I can tell you, you can refer to the BARC data, which clearly says that which channel was more balanced. There was one channel which has 100% stories on one particular subject, and there was ABP network who has got in the top, in the whole pie, there were about 5 or 6 stories equally divided. So we did not do that. It is not our policy. We were tempted to do that. It's not, it is, when all of us are chasing the eyeballs, and when you know that people are, if you chase the eyeballs, you have to go to the base level. I mean, if this is what you want to do, then it's the wrong business that you are in. So we had enough temptation to do that, but we did not do it. But I also tell you, Anil, these are all passing phases, I say the people who are running the news business today in India are the best people in India in terms of their journalistic experience, in terms of their education level, in terms of their access to resources, knowledge about the country. What is happening is that if the TRP, which is based on the time spent comes through delivering drama, and if the news business starts delivering drama, then news will start taking a back seat. Why it should be? And that's what we need to introspect along with the industry bodies, that does BARC effectively manage the impact of the news that you deliver through your news channels? And unless that does not happen, unfortunately, we'll all be in the rat race of chasing rating, and it will destroy the country, it will destroy our businesses and people's life.
No, I get that. So the shutdown, it's something I believe the NBA was going to walk out of BARC, and then they decided to, the members of the NBA, then that's where they decided to relook everything. So what will change when it, if it's not measuring effectively, and if it's also open to, I believe the back end is pretty good, and the people managing it are impeccable. I think there's no one more honest than Sunil I've come across, the man who's in the BARC right now. So the statistical, side has been managed very well by the TechCom. Then of course, there are leakages in any system. So what will change post? Because it will continue measuring like it was measuring earlier. They're just going to possibly ensure that leakages don't happen and, corruption doesn't take place.
See, there would always be a data theft, manipulation, corruption that happens across the data. Even today, people buy likes on Facebook and YouTube and etc. So I'm not concerned about that. When it starts happening at a large scale level, a huge percentage of that is under doubt. then there is a need for introspection, and that's what I think the industry is doing right now. If the issue of, for example, I think the biggest reform in India that happened in last 3 months' time was education reform. It is going to change a generation of India in next 10 years' time. And the way we are educated. It is first time Indian government has decided to walk out of the Macaulay kind of system of teaching, right?
Absolutely. I can choose my subjects. I can choose my majors, minors. I don't have to, if I'm doing BCom, I can do an art subject. I can do a science subject. They've liberalized it a lot.
Over a period of time, in next 10 years' time, it will also save a lot of foreign exchange that just India, that's India actually, we import education actually, right? We send our kids abroad to study, and billions of dollars are spent globally on educating our children. I'm saying those will stop. So it was a huge reform. Unfortunately, at that time, news channels were chasing some silly stories about a crime, right? Because the rating was not coming if you talk anything sensible. And that's not what rating system should deliver. So I'm against this minute by minute graph of like a stock market telling you what the news item is working, and some data scientist coming that when you show your reporter is running from car to this one, that's when the rating goes up. When you shout, rating goes up. It is going to destroy the industry, and hence it is important that industry leaders should sit down and relook at the way they measure the rating system.
Okay.
It's important. It was very important.
Periodicity that you're looking at, or is it granularity or periodicity or statistical, ways of measuring?
So BAC, I think, will invite suggestions from all the news channels and including associations like NBA. And they are in the process, as I understand. So, and it would not be easy, I can tell you, for either the BAC or the industry body or the individual channels to actually migrate to a very safe and sound medium. But eventually it will happen. It has to happen because there are technology available. Return part data is available. There are several kind of tools available which can actually measure the real audience on the news channels today.
Okay. Now, going beyond TRP, do you think the business model of the news industry is working, or is it not working? Does it need fixing? I think it's broken.
So the business model of the news business is very flawed. As I said earlier also, it is 100% dependent on advertising revenue, which should not be. As I said earlier, we as a network will move to the pay. We are moving to the pay very soon. To become pay, you have to also prepare premium content, which is an investment. For example, if you look at it in the coverage of election, one program I can safely say, the poll call that we do with Shekhar Suman, which is satire on the news events of the election, cost a bomb. It will be probably the entire budget of many news channels for the election. It's just one show. Our reporter has been doing debate in every single district, tehsil, and constituency since last over a month. We have a team traveling everywhere. It costs a lot of money. We also did a series on the places like the George Orwell's house in Motihari, the magnificent building of the Darbhanga Maharaj, and how it changed the North Bihar. So these stories of Bihar, which is in docu format, we invested a lot of money in doing it. I think, and it's a very tough call for AVP to take because you have very limited resources. And so unless you don't go pay, these kind of contents will take a back seat. We have been doing it. We produced Pradhan Mantri 2 series. We have produced a lot of docudramas. I think news channels need to relook at their business model so that we can deliver quality content to our audience.
I get it. So on the other side, if you'd heard the previous speaker, Jared Timmons, he talks about how smaller multi-channel networks are coming up in the US and they're different formats, 4.5 hours of a person giving his analysis being watched by hundreds of thousands of people, on digital. So there is pressure coming on all sides for you all, unless it's fixed. And possibly, I don't know whether there's regulatory intervention needed. The NBSA is there, the NBA is there. But then again, the industry seems to be fragmented, not fragmented, fission. But MK Anand doesn't agree with me. He says those are a bunch of renegade channels. We are the legacy networks. So, I mean,
of course, NBA is the legacy network, and if you look at our members, we have almost about 80 to 90% of the India's eyeballs. Having said that, what you just said about the change in the environment, okay, in America, I tell you, all this problem of cacophony and the content degradation, technology will solve it. Digital is already there in the big way. And unlike cable, which is a push medium, digital is a pull medium. You look for a good content, right? And more connected TVs are sold in India. In 10,000 rupees, today you can buy a smart TV. So the way, and the data cost is going down like anything. Today, as I said in the last meeting also with you, that even in class like D and E, people have smartphones and they're watching movies on their phone. So why will not they consume a good content online? And that's what the news channel needs to evolve. And we are going very, in a very speedy way in that direction of how you will watch ABP News on a smart TV. You will watch what you want to watch. So if you want to watch Rubika's show, you can watch only Rubika's shows one after another.
Excellent.
Or if you want to watch Sumit Awasthi shows, you can watch, and you want to know more about Sumit Awasthi, you can go to his Facebook page, talk to him like that. This is how the news televisions will get consumed in India, and this is the future.
Yeah, but the tech is also allowing you that you do meta tagging very well. And based on my likes, I can only watch sports clips during the day, during the past week, during the past fortnight, and consume what I want. But it's interesting that they're going in that direction. It's sad that we are running out of time because I have, but it's all like always. It's wonderful chatting with you, and thank you for addressing whatever thoughts which have been shared by industry with us to pose to you. Thank you very much, and I wish we had more time to talk. We could have gone on and on, like always. Either you're short of time or I'm short of time.
Thank you, Anil, for calling me up, and I hope whatever I spoke was valuable to you and your audience. Thank you.
Yeah, to the industry as a whole also. It's not just the audience. We want to, Indian television is looking at, its position as a catalyst, as a platform to enable the industry to progress to the next level, as a place where we agglomerate the industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pandey and Mr. Vanwari, for the engaging conversation. I once again ask Mr. Vanwari to stay back because we have a virtual fireside chat with Mr. Barun Das, CEO, TV9, the news network.
Yeah, Priyanka?
Yeah. Is Mr. Barun in?
We're losing you. Priyanka?
Hello?
Yes, we can see you. Can you continue, please? Yeah, so
Yeah.
what are you there?
So I welcome Mr. Barun Das, CEO of TV9 News Network.
Yeah, continue, please, Priyanka.
So over to you, Mr. Vanwari.
Barun, good morning. Can we see you? Can we see you?
Can you? Which is the camera which is on for me? Which is my camera?
Barun, you're on. I can see you. It's okay. You're looking spiffy as ever.
I'm a little lucky that way. That's about it.
Yeah, but you're looking spiffy. Good morning. How are you this morning?
All well, Anil. Makes it better as I'm talking to you.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Challenging times for the news business. Your perspective.
I think it's an opportunity. Every challenge comes with opportunity. I'm sure news television has come out of COVID pandemic situation, and going is good. Can't complain. In fact, it's better than much better than it was before the COVID period for news television industry. That's what I feel.
Yeah, but still challenging times. You're evading my question.
It is always challenging time, and in every challenge there lies an opportunity. Life is all about challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, I get it. So now if you want me to ask further questions, I'll ask you what's right with the business right now?
What's right with the business?
Yeah.
I mean, business is as usual. At this point in time, you obviously have a little bit of a different scenario for news network, news channels. You don't have this bark rating, but not much have changed as of now. That's the new thing. Then you are into this festival season, which is giving us some reason to enjoy ourselves and rake in a little more extra revenue. That's about it. And that's right. And the different scenario is, as I said, there's no bark rating for news industry.
So is that good? Is that bad?
Good or bad? You know, that's a very subjective statement. I don't know whether it is good or bad. I mean, people have taken decisions. They are stalwarts in the industry. But what I feel personally is that I feel like an outcast when one fine morning I get to know, no, before that NBA did have a word with me. But when I find that only the news television rating has been suspended, so that makes me feel that I'm standing with a bunch of people who possibly are suspicious, and which is what made me a little uncomfortable. I don't think that, at least, you know, I reflect my own self in my thoughts, that I don't think the industry per se something is wrong. Few unscrupulous acts might happen here and there, but overall, outcasting the industry, I felt a little uncomfortable about it. And if the decision was mine, I would have really risen tooth and nail that don't color the entire industry in sort of a light of suspicion.
Okay, what would you have done? Especially when there's so much intervention happening. The police intervention.
What does this word intervention mean? I mean, you're saying malpractice at the ground level, right? So if you ask me, I would tend to think that the news channels, which is part of the fourth estate of democracy, definitely has larger ramification to the society in terms of what content it covers. So we need to be extra cautious, and we need to be as immaculate as possible, because we have a responsibility of sort of coloring or forming the country's opinion and mind. So if you had left to me, I would have said that if the situation was like that all through, I would have come up with a diktat saying that any malpractice with or tampering from a news player should attract capital punishment. That's what I would have said. To my mind, the gravitas of that crime is so much more. So that's what I would have done.
So capital punishment means chopping of the hands?
That is left to the legal system. I'm not a law expert. I've said the severe most punishment, that this is a serious fraud. This is a really serious fraud, because you actually you influence the country's mind, the way the country thinks. So therefore, that should be a zero tolerance.
Okay, so that's one, you know, but the fact that MK Anand was telling me yesterday that it was a police complaint was registered. In the past, it was very difficult to even get the police to acknowledge that it's a crime. So there is progress now, right?
Yeah, there is progress, but if it was, you know, I feel I've never ever pointed a finger towards the currency. Even when TAM was there in my earlier stint in this industry, I never used to point a finger to TAM. Or even today, I think BARC is an industry body. We all said at some point in time that TAM is sham, so let's have BARC. And you would see I'm sure that if you go back and see the trend, this BARC rating was flaunted by many who are questioning BARC today. So that's an uncanny, maybe it's a coincidence that I complain against the currency only when I am victimized. Otherwise, it's all hunky-dory. So that is baffling to me. I mean, you've got to have a standard. You've got to have a standard which is consistent. The second is that if there was something to be done at this point in time, if I was consulted, I would have said that what's the reason? You don't put the entire industry as a bunch of unscrupulous fellows. That's what it may be construed as. You want to, sorry, are you there? Huh? You want to make a correction?
I'm all listening attentively to you.
You want to make a correction? Why don't you do the technical way? I was talking to one of the NBA members who was trying to convince me that this is to be done. And I said, no, why? He said, sample size is small. I said, sample size is small for special interest channels as well. So why not have a technical cutoff? Instead of just outcasting one genre, say that below this, the sample or the statistical methods or the instruments have larger margins of error. So we would suspend these other genres which follow below this. that's what I would have done. That would have made me feel comfortable.
Okay. So now the CBI has entered the fray. What's your perspective? What's going to come of it?
It's a very sensitive question. I've read the newspaper release and the press releases and all. I thought that people found there's a little bit of a question mark in the alacrity with which the case was transferred to CBI. It's up to their judgment. But I personally think, which is what I said then when fingers were pointed at our ratings, TV9 Bharatvarsh rating earlier, that I, as an individual, would not object to any investigation. That's what I would do. And if you talk about the way that it has transferred to CBI may be questionable, but I, as an industry, what stopped me to invite CBI for an investigation even earlier, even before somebody else pointed finger, while things are so wrong that I'm applauding being sidelined or suspended from the BARC rating, why not I would clean it up? On my channels, every day I say, call CBI for this investigation, involve CBI for that. So when it comes to my own stuff, why would I resign? I would have, if I were at the helm of things, and if my conscience is clear, I would have actually gone out and invited any independent and neutral investigation agency to come and investigate the entire thing. And if there are malpractices, fine. Severe reactions should have been there.
Okay, so but what do you expect things to change post 12 weeks?
I'm sure that
will the industry not run like lemons and fall over the cliff like they've been falling over, chasing sometimes innocuous stories, sometimes when larger issues of national interest are being ignored. Overall, also the commentators have been saying that the news is being dictated. Avinash just told me the governments always put pressure. It's up to us how we react. And some editors have told me that sometimes I'm ashamed being a journalist that I was ever associated with this channel or that channel.
Sorry, what's the question?
The question is, will things change? Will we go back to the rat race even after the cleanup? Or, what's going to happen? I mean, we're having this cleanup going on. What's going to happen as far as the industry is concerned? Your channel is concerned?
It has perspectives which you'll have to see. Go back, okay? How did news industry with print have started? There were a few people, philosophically driven, have started newspaper. They were funding it themselves. The newspapers or the news industry really wasn't taken as a viable business model. And then they added getting sales, etc., etc. I remember that in a very childhood, the only business function of a newspaper organization would be the technical finance and ad sales. Marketing and all were not there. So why was it so? Because, the idea was that you can't really manufacture content, news content, right? If you look at GECs, that worked more like a traditional business, an FMCG model. What an FMCG does, that he finds out what the consumer needs, if there's a gap, imagery or product-driven gap, and then they produce and create product and sell it and make the margin. That's how it works, which is by and large the same way entertainment industry works, because they manufacture product, they can create product. But news, ideally, we were supposed to depend on what's happening. I can't manufacture news. So with advent of digital thing, where news breaking happens by the time you and I speak, the news is breaking outside on social media and digital world. So news has become more like views and perspective. But at the same time, what has happened, news has become a tradition, or tried to become a traditional business, profitable business. There are news companies which are listed. So, I mean, obviously, corporate social responsibility is every organization's, should be there in every organization's DNA. That should drive every organization. But news, the journey has changed. It has now become a business. So the business imperatives are there, but checks and measures have to be there. Because as I said, the news channels are fourth estate. They just can't afford to be only business and be driven by only business interest.
No, I get it. But again, so as far as y'all are concerned, is there governmental intervention happening? Like editors are stating, have stated to me, more than one editor has stated to me. What can be said, what cannot be said?
I have my perspective in it. In a democracy, government is mine. I've chosen the government. The government is having an intervention everywhere. I mean, why would I fight tooth and nail for government not to have anything to do with this industry? Are we holier than thou? Are we above everything? How could you be left to something only to ourselves, and to ourselves where we are infighting, where we are taking out our dirty linen out in the market? And are we really showing to the world that we are mature enough, that we can handle ourselves? Every now and then, we are calling each other's name, we are cursing each other's, we are doing that not only off channel, we are doing that on the channel also. And at the same time, so it's a family, you're saying the brats are all fighting, and then you're saying we would handle it ourselves. Nobody should come from outside. So that is a little bit of a dichotomy, according to me. It is inexplicable, but at the same time, free press is fundamental to our constitution. So what is meant by intervention, I don't know.
No, by intervention, that this cannot be said about this, in different regions, the center, you cannot say this about the government, you cannot say this about, there's intervention happening at that level.
Freedom of speech, that's part of your constitution. How would ever government say that? It's a free country. I mean, I have freedom of speech, whether it is press or individually. And today you can't stop anybody. Everybody is a content provider on the social media. So I don't think that I have never felt that way from any government so far, in my earlier stint or in my this stint. I haven't been under pressure from anybody, from any of the government machineries, saying that this is not going to happen, that is not going to happen. I've heard about it. I'm going to some different markets. There are new launches coming up. I don't know what future has in store for me, but so far I haven't felt that.
That's good then. So in terms of the business model, dependency on advertising, with a lesser dependency on subscription in most markets, I would say, there is free-to-air news television and there is paid television. A lot of the news channels are paid. Why, what do you think in terms of the dependency on advertising is that much less? And hence, in terms of, let's also talk about a scenario where so many channels are operating in India, where some of the channels are owned by suspect individuals, some of them owned by genuine business people who understand media and want to use media for the greater good, apart from business, of course. The greater good is being the fourth estate. So should there be a limit on the number of news channels that are operating in India? Or should they, like publications, we have more than 30,000 publications, but gradually market forces are reducing those because there isn't enough business going around. So what's your perspective on, I brought up three things in this, and in the last 30 seconds that I spoke.
Okay, that's a very interesting word which you have said, that in an ideal scenario, the market forces are auto-correcting. If you leave something to the market forces, absolutely, in an ideal scenario, there would be auto-correction. If news is a business, if beyond a certain number of channels, the profitability doesn't really come and the business model is not viable, automatically people will not come and launch new channels. Now that doesn't happen, as you said, that because news apparently comes with lots of power. So you will have a share of voice. There may be a tendency, I've known that, I personally have known that, people are in other businesses, they run the news operations, even if it's running in losses for 10 years, they still continue to do that. So therefore, how do you stop that? I don't know. I mean, it's a free democracy. How do you stop someone from coming and doing it? Such kind of checks and measures will have to be built in, that we can sit down across the table, brainstorm, and can find out something which is almost foolproof. You really cannot come up with something which is completely foolproof because this is a subjective domain. And as far as the model of advertising driven you're saying, again, I have a very radical view. This is how I would have seen the scenario. You know why? As I was saying, that the ratings have a huge ramification on the society as a whole. How? Let us say that there's a set of, I mean, there's a sample. The sample is giving rise to certain preferred choice of the entire universe. If the sample for anything is inadequate and the choice doesn't reflect really the choice of the country, then the risk that we're running is humongous. How? Let's say, I mean, the currency that we have, it's saying that the consumers are enjoying circus on a news channel during prime time. So that's what consumers are expecting. And like in a free society, whatever the consumer is expecting, you tend to give that more in your content. So by the end of the year, you will see almost all the channels are showing circus on the prime time. So the original consumers who actually didn't like circus now have nothing to see or nothing to watch on a news net, on the news channels other than circus. So eventually they'll start watching circus. So that's how the entire country, which hated seeing circus in the first place, now eventually would start liking circus. So that's the risk that a democracy, that's the risk the country has for going wrong in our ratings. Mind it that it doesn't happen only for news channels. The consumptions of entertainment content is even far more. And if you see, if there is degenerating content which is being liked by people and therefore being produced more, maybe they're not liking it. One doesn't know. So if, as far as news channel is concerned, I would tend to think that we should have a model which is completely driven by subscription. And you should have, you know, as I always say, that maybe advertising driven news channel, news operations is possibly is an oxymoron. I mean, if somebody is a large advertiser of mine, how much I will expose him if something is going wrong at his end. So fundamentally, according to me, there's something wrong in that system. So make it subscription based completely. I have a small amount of inventory kept, which will be filled by, because advertising is also need, which will be filled by a central agency purely on numbers. And forget about ratings. Okay, you don't need ratings. The subscription, if it's subscription based, every subscriber is identified by me. I would know how many people are subscribing. And I can price it for $10, $100, $1,000, depending on the number of people which will come and watch. And I have maybe 3 minutes for half an hour, which is kept for advertising, which is like it happens programmatic advertising on digital, it comes through that. So that's an ideal scenario, according to me. And to get that ideal scenario, I think 1 year and 5,000 crore. 5,000 crore is the total revenue of the news industry.
4.5. 4.5.
Whatever. I mean, 4.5. I mean, a lot of are not. I mean, 4.5 and 5,000. It's an approximation. So 5,000 crore. Give the news industry 1 year's time. The turn pay after 1 year. Here's the amount of revenue that you've earned from your advertising last year. You have 1 year turn pay. So that possibly would lead to some kind of an autocorrect, according to me. It's a radical thing, but that's purely academic. It can be discussed, thought through, and evaluated.
Okay. As far as you're concerned, the previous speaker, Jared Timmons, he's the Vice President Sales in TVU. He says there's disruption coming, massive disruption coming in the news industry. It's already taking place in the US. Newer formats of commentary are coming, of news commentary, of news engagement, where influencers, multi-channel digital networks are coming up, and they're challenging the legacy networks. And that is coming into India also, because cost of cloud have gone down, cost of the acquisition equipment, that's your cameras and everything, has gone down drastically. And the cost of putting very, very fancy cameras has gone down. So that's coming into our country. What do you see in that scenario happening to the broadcast channels, which are broadcast over satellite, cable, DTH? What do you see happening to this industry then?
See, we have been hearing about this convergence for quite some time. The convergence which I've always been speaking about is the convergence of news creator, originator, and news consumer, which is what the digital world will bring in. And I have earlier also said that the entire model of traditional TV broadcast will give in way to the digital platform. And the digital platform, because it is, again, there's no intervention on the digital platform, but the digital platform is on the autocorrect mode. People watch what they want to watch and when they want to watch. So that's how it'll move eventually. But again, organized players will always be there. For instance, if you see the OTT platforms, the entertainment OTT platforms, possibly you would search and get most of the content which is there being aggregated by these OTT platforms, those entertainment contents, you would find that on the net domain anyway. But you still want that because it is organized to your taste, and you can easily surf through.
Intervene 1 sec,
So there would be always that organized players will be there who would get their act together and would seamlessly transform themselves from a traditional TV organized TV business to more digital news content business.
But going by it's like Avinash was telling me, it's a very OPEX heavy business. news television, as compared to the newer players who are not that OPEX heavy?
No, come again. What's the question?
The question is, the newer players who are emerging now, internationally and domestically, some of them have started coming up. They don't have such operational expenses that you all guys do. Does that need fixing too, in terms of technologically, within the broadcast networks, the major ones?
No, the OPEX is up to me. I mean, OPEX is up to the industry. Like, for instance, carriage fees is something which was making the news industry unviable about 10, 12 years back. Digitization happened, but we have inched up to that level of carriage fees which we used to pay earlier. And who paid? Collectively as an industry. So I can't blame for my OPEX with anyone. It's not individually me, but it's the market forces. It's industry, how it's behaving, how much of discipline the industry has, how much of working together the industry has. Is there a common norms which binds the industry? Do they have a common goal? Do they have everyone pursuing that common goal? So I think OPEX is not a function of anything else other than the way we want to run the business.
Okay. All right. You know, we are running out of time. I would have liked to speak to you a lot more, like I wanted to speak to Avinash too. I hope we've covered everything that we were going to talk about. If there's any last words you want to share with us, it'll be great.
No, not really. I'm keenly waiting for this kind of an uncertain time to get over. As I said, that I find myself being classified with a group whose way of running business is suspicious. So therefore, I'm sure that I have my confidence and respect for the currency because I own that. That's owned by industry, the bar. Nothing is foolproof. Nothing in the universe is foolproof. There's always scope of improvement. We should always inch towards that. We should adopt those improvements and move forward. It's a little uncertain time because after this uncertainty, if you go back to what it was, then I don't know what will happen. I'll have to engage with the authorities and figure out that what's happening. So that is a very, very keen focus for, I think, not only mine, the entire industry at this point in time.
Thank you very much, Barun. As usual, it's nice talking to you. You come up with very management-driven, you're like a Harvard University marketing person who comes in and breaks.
No. One sec, Anil. You have to know what is strategy, what is marketing. I mean, these are not taught in Harvard University. This is taught every day in our life. What is marketing? The marketing is nothing but, or what is running businesses is nothing but creating a win-win situation, which you do every day with your wife, with your friend, with your son. You have to constantly create win-win situation. It's very fundamental. I never use a jargon. For me, the biggest technical education that one can go through is common sense. Irrespective of my degrees from these universities and all, I feel that I'm driven more by common sense. So there's no Harvard in place. It's all common sense, very elementary, if you see.
Which is fantastic. I like, again, that's a very structured answer to my unstructured question. Thank you for your time, Barun, again, and wish you lots of success and wish the industry lots of success. Once this uncertain period gets over, we get into a period of sanity, and we gain the consumers' respect, the news industry, the advertisers' respect until we move towards the pay model. Thank you, and you have all the best to you and to.
Thank you, Anil. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Das and Mr. Vanwari, for a wonderful dialogue.
Disconnect.
Up next, we have a panel discussion. Advertising on news. I would like to invite our esteemed panelist, Ms. Pachi Mohapatra, Chief Marketing Officer, FBB Future Group, Mr. Sameer Sethi, Head of Brand Marketing, Policy Bazaar, Mr. Ajay Gupte, CEO South Asia Wavemaker, Mr. Anand Chakravarti, Senior Vice President, Managing Director, India, Essence, Mr. Varun Kohli, Group CEO, ITV Network. And this session is moderated by Mr. Ashish Firwani, Partner, M&E, Ernst & Young. I welcome you all, and over to you, Mr. Firwani.
Thank you so much, and welcome to all the panelists. I think we have a very, very interesting session that we have in terms of questions, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of the best in the business give their perspectives around this. Now, the session is all about, advertising and how it's moving, especially in the era of, Bark shutting down its ratings, there's a COVID impact, and so much more is happening right now that, there's a very high level of uncertainty in the industry. And to answer some of the questions and see where this is all moving, I'm going to start off with a few data points and then get quickly into the session. So 2020, a very, very newsy year. In fact, starting with 2019, we've had a growth in TV viewership overall from around 8% of total TV viewership to 10%, which is great from the industry, a massive growth and reach up increase. When COVID struck, I think from my understanding, April and May were bad months because ad volumes fell significantly as brands started getting impacted and absorbing the shock. But I believe now they are back. And in some clients of mine where I'm working with, I understand that they are in fact showing year-on-year growth in terms of ad volumes. Ad rates, however, remain a bit of a challenge, but again are starting to rise. Now, I think starting the session off, all right, we've seen this volume growth and we've seen huge amounts of volume come into play. Now, more than 20 minutes on hour of advertising on some channels. I want to start with you, Prachi. As an advertiser, with all that ad clutter, how do you see the news genre on television? And what do you use it for?
Hi, Ashish. And thank you so much for having me here. And thank you for letting me go first. As an advertiser, I think we have been one of those brands who have been actively using this platform since a long, long time. I think it's not a new genre for us. And for our campaigns, we have always given due respect to this genre as one of the highest reach for us. And rightfully so. We are a young brand. We definitely wanted to reach the right kind of customer segment, and this has actually worked for us. We have seen results, hence which is why it has worked for us. And not only on FCT, we have been able to use the non-FCT space also very effectively for us. So how do I see this space growing on? How do I see this us interacting with this genre as a brand? I see it on a positive side, and I think couple of minutes back we heard Varun also speak on this. See, it's not about the platform anymore; it's about the content which you are associating with. So if it has become, of course, it had become a very pertinent space for us on pre-COVID times. But post-COVID, I think it has definitely skewed a little bit more towards the digital platforms, but news is right up there for us. As we have the discussion much more warmed up, I'll come up with a lot of examples that we have had seen as a success. We have been experimenting with this genre outside of the TV space also. And I think we have had a successful stint as to how we have been interacting with this genre as a brand. So, yeah.
I think there's no doubt that news is a brilliant genre when you want reach. But Samir, anything to add to that? How do you see the news genre? Samir, I think you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, see, like Prachi said, news is an anchor genre for us also. We advertise 12 months a year. And news is something that takes about 1/3 of our TV spends throughout. And, during the slump of COVID as well, while there were most of the categories who were pulling out of their advertising plans and who were cutting down on spends, etc., we were extremely bullish because insurance was one of the categories that was positively impacted by COVID. So I think during the slump as well, while the overall ad volumes were down, our share of voice increased without even, spending a lot of money extra over and above that. And we will continue to be extremely bullish on news because, insurance is an extremely male-dominated category in terms of shoppers. And, the audience mix of news also is very, very relevant.
Great. Varun, from your point of view, with ad volumes being the way they are and really, great ad volumes on news as the reach has grown, this whole impending legislation on ad cap, which has kind of been regulated over the last month or so, what kind of impact will that have, should it go through, on rates and volumes?
Hi, Ashish. Thank you for the opportunity. See, the legislation has been in discussion for long, right? But news, because if it's in the FTA regime, right, the revenues will not commensurate from the money you make from distribution. That is one, right? And with, of course, digitization of majority news networks now, right? So there are two different streams that we work on, right? The volumes that we are talking of, and I'll just take 1 minute from what others were saying. You know, when COVID came, it became more of a blessing for news channels than anybody else, because digital space, still people were not very clear whether the news is right or not, right? So they came back to the news channels in a right way. A lot of news channels reinvented themselves, right? And that is why you see the reach of that genre went up considerably, right? Because of the newsworthiness and all also. Now with impending Bihar elections and some of the other newsy things happening, right? One, it is the cheapest way to reach out to audience, which is news, because it is free to air. So any network you can plug and play if you want it, and the viewer, and that is how the viewership of the genre will grow, right? I don't see legislation happening, at least in the next 2 or 3 years, for news cap on news channels. We have had enough discussions. I've been a part of a lot of committees. Nothing works when it goes there, because all the regimes also want news channels to be reaching out to the masses, because they want to communicate their messages also through news channels. So I don't see that happening in the near future, at least the understanding that I have.
But interesting. But I mean, just a point of view, and maybe Ajay, you know, and Anand, you could step in here, that if, for example, inventory were to be capped by 30-40% lesser than what it is today, would you expect the rates to go up in that scenario of shortage? And I would love to hear from an agency how you guys would think about it.
Yeah, so thanks, Ashish, for having me, and hello, everyone. You know, rates effectively are a function of eyeballs, is a function of viewership. So, and you know, that's the market currency that, you know, we are all operating. Typically, when you would shorten an ad break, and you know, or if you were to increase the number of ads in a break, you typically possibly see a little bit of a dip in the viewership during the mid of the break. People will move out possibly. However, if you shorten the breaks, the likelihood of viewership going up or staying constant throughout the break is a lot higher. And therefore, as a pure function of that, technically, you would have higher eyeballs, you'd have better TVRs, and therefore, eventually you would get better rates. So it really is a mathematical function, yeah. So
yeah, I think the question really is whether the rate increase would be as high as 30-40%, which is the potential drop in the volume of advertising, which would be a little difficult.
Ashish, I just wanted to.
Bit of a stretch.
Can I add something on this, Ashish, on what Ajay is saying? Because as soon as you
go into,
as soon as you go into the paid regime, the viewership will drop in a large extent, because a lot of people want to pay, might not want to pay, and all, right? So what Ajay is saying, I feel it will be the contrary. The rates might not go up for a lot of people. It might go down, because if the genre goes down, then the consideration set, like what happened in English news post digitization, the monies will be less on the genre. Money less on the genre means more fierce competition, and the rates cannot go up.
Okay, interesting. Anand, you want to chip in on this one as well? What's your take?
Hi guys, hi everyone. That's an interesting and contentious topic, given the way news has moved in the last 6 months. It almost seems that COVID affected news and news editors more than it affected the population of the country. It's really an unfortunate, and I'm going to talk as a consumer first and then a media professional, because honestly, living in the world's largest democracy and watching the way news editorial coverage has really moved in this country is a sad testimony of what's happening around us. And I'm sorry I had to say that piece, because this is about news. Let me move to the brick and mortar of media. So I think we look, if I had to add some jargon to this conversation, I think there are 3 C's. There's clutter, there's context, and cost. And I think all of this determines, whether a media platform is going to do a good job for a client or not. So, from what Ajay said, absolutely, as you increase ad breaks, absolutely you're going to see a drop in consumption of advertising. I mean, that has been proven time and time again. And yes, absolutely. I think I completely agree with Varun that eventually, if that does happen, then and let's say channels do become paid, the viewership will get limited. But I think then the kind of advertisers you will attract are probably going to be different kind of advertisers. Today on free-to-air news channels, you see advertisers ranging from every single kind of product, right from high-end cars to all the way down to cement and products talking to the last mile in this country, right? And I think the fact is context is important because there are advertisers who, for the right value at the right audiences, will be willing to pay a premium price, right? I think definitely that is there. Is it going to be an easy thing to happen? No, nothing is easy when it comes to increasing your spends on any genre. So I think I think the both sides of the coin there. I think yes, I think there's definitely a need to regulate the amount of advertising only because for the fact that at the end of the day, it is the news channels and the advertisers who will be the losers because eventually consumers are not here to watch advertising when they come to a news channel. And a 15-minute ad break, for example, makes no sense to a consumer because after a point of time, they're going to switch off and move to another genre. And it's very easy to do today. Plus, you also already have the smartphone in the consumer's hand, which is anyway a distraction, right? So I think it's in the interest of everyone to ensure that our advertising environment becomes far more consumer friendly. Yes, consumers need ads. It's not that consumers reject ads, but I think how much advertising and how you place your advertising and what kind of breaks you have is all very, very critical to be kind of calibrated to create the right kind of experience and value for the entire ecosystem.
So in a way, you're saying this, reducing the number of ads in a break is something the industry should try and work towards, is what I'm hearing, to give it that premium feel. Because my overall feel is that as an industry, it's a very good product on several channels, but somehow does not always get the respect that it should in terms of advertising rates, even though the SEC AB mix in several news channels is pretty impressive. But anyway, coming back to a slightly different point of view, COVID had an impact on volumes, it had an impact on rates. And rates were down as much as 40-50% for some channels, or even worse in some cases. But they've started bouncing back. Varun, starting with you, how do you see the rates? Are they going to bounce back? Have they already bounced back? How will premium properties sell going forward? What's your forecast on rates?
Yeah, okay. So coming back to, I'll just take a minute to talk to you on COVID and post-COVID times, the way it is. COVID times, of course, April, May, it hit everybody adversely big time, right? But the FMCG advertisers and all who were on other genres started compensating by coming to this genre per se. Because this was the only genre which was growing. Because all other places, the content was not there, except the movies, which were the old movies running, and there was no new movie, okay? So, of course, the rates were down because with Ajay and all out there, the buyers were sharp enough to tell people that it's COVID and the advertisers want, and that is where even if you see Policy Bazaar per se, they advertise very much in the first quarter of the new year, which never normally happens for them. Because people realize there's an opportunity. For us, it was about a flight full or a flight empty, So everybody came together and we were trying to see what is the best win-win situation. And I think news, yes, it was impacted the first 2 months of the financial year. But after that, it regained. Now coming to the festive and post-festive, with Bihar elections coming in and a lot of newsy thing happening in, we have been able to get our old rates back at least, or a little more than that. So a lot of bigger channels might not get because our genre is now 13 genres in Hindi and around 7 in English, right? So maybe the leaders still would have not gained the part, but the frequency channels per se are getting their rates back in some order, because they're making a lot of sense to the agencies and the advertisers in terms of the CPRP mix or whatever they have to put it in. And plus with 13 channels in a Hindi or a 6-7 in English, the competition has become so fierce that somebody's taking the cake and maybe the top end of the pyramid, their rates are affected still to a large extent.
So you're saying not very good from the premium side, but for the reach frequency curve build-ups, it's still a very, very effective product and rates are coming back over there.
And it has been a newsy environment any which ways, from China to Sushant to Bihar to something or the other. The news environment has always been there in a big way. I agree with one of my co-panelists that probably a lot of channels showed a very different content, which became a very discerning point for people. But when you have 13 channels in a genre, I mean, each one has its own quite of a loyal viewership in a certain time frame. And appointment viewing. We changed our strategy in the COVID times. We are not into Sushant Singh. We are into all other big issues which are there. So we took that as an opportunity also, because you were reaching out to a large audience who was sitting at home and might consume your channel, which otherwise they would have not consumed news at all because of the busy schedule they were in.
No, very, very true. And this really brings me to a very interesting part of the thing, which is that if I were to ask this to Ajay again, and Ajay, you've been there for so many years, right? And you bought more news than most other people on earth. But if I were to just say that if I were to take a forward-looking view on news TV as a genre from an advertiser perspective, what are one or two things you see changing in a 3-year timeline from advertising on news? How do you really look at it growing, or is it going to have some negative impacts out there? What's your take?
You have to forget to unmute yourself once in a meeting.
It's the rule.
So the thing about news, is that there is a stable, loyal base of viewers who are staple and for whom news is staple, and they will come back day after day, time after time, and consume news. And I think that is the bedrock of their audience, who's always there. COVID, in a way, was a big blessing for the news channels, because the GECs were lacking content, fresh content, and we've spoken lots about this, and therefore, and there was lots to see, and authenticity was important, and therefore, TV news channels, and newspapers also suffered because they were not getting into households, and all of it. I think all the stars got aligned, and news definitely did very well. And there were 2-3 additional things which came into play. One was from a very high prime time viewership, you also had the entire day coming into play. I think that was another big change which came into play. And the other was the viewership amongst women also went up during that time. While news is normally seen as a more male bastion, I think in the last 6 months we have seen a lot of women also coming in and watching, and especially the kind of news that has been also coming in. Sushant, it was things that got the entire family in front of the television. So in that sense, COVID did change and was very beneficial to the genre. One or two things which are really changing are, I think one is appointment viewing is coming into play, which wasn't there earlier. So earlier a news channel just sold on TRPs and day parts or whatever. But however, now you do have some shows which command a premium as appointment viewing specific shows. With news channels having recognized this and having actually benefited in terms of pricing using this appointment viewing phenomena on news, I think there will be a lot more of that coming up, and possibly through other parts of the day. Right now, it's largely prime time, 9 o'clock is where the appointment viewing shows are, but there is likelihood of that changing, because I think it's a very good opportunity. The other opportunity I do see is broadening the audience base, and the benefit has been seen in the past, in the last 6 months, 8 months, or where we've had other members of the family coming and watching, and that is something possibly that the news channels may want to think about. Is there some kind of content that can also bring stickiness from another set of audience and not just the male of the house? And therein, I think, are two opportunities that news channels are likely to take up, having learned in the last 8 months that there is a possibility of it getting better in this sense. So to me, these are the few things that will change and will help news genre grow better in the next 2 or 3 years.
Very, very interesting, Ajay. Appointment viewing and and growing the kind of audiences we're reaching out to, and maybe an opportunity for news channels to tweak their content strategy to appeal to that larger family audience than just the male audience. Interesting. Anand, I'm putting you in a spot over here. Is news, when you look at it, is about 10% of viewership, and it generates maybe 15 to 17% of total ad revenues for the sector. Today, do you believe news is over-indexed or under-indexed on revenues? And what do you think the overall potential could be?
Yeah. Look, I think the importance of news that we've seen, or the, I would say, importance translated into consumption of news has been significantly high during the last 6 months, largely because of COVID, and then the way certain stories were taken and converted into broadly entertainment, I would say, targeting the family. So what Ajay was talking about has been happening, right? We've seen more and more news content starting to become, very, very intentionally more universal and trying to appeal to different segments. Look, I think the nature, I don't think, news as content is never going to go out of the window, ever. It's always going to be important for us because as human beings, we're going to be curious. We want to know what's happening. We will always be interested. And in different parts of the country, right, from whether it's interest in politics to interest in sports to interest in current affairs, there are different pockets of consumption. So I think what's changing is the way people are consuming news. So if I look at the news television genre, right, and if I look at what's happened to, let's say, the English entertainment and the English movies genre on television, as consumption of this content moved to the digital space, we have seen that the consumption, both from a viewership and therefore from an advertiser perspective, has declined. So I think with English news channels, and honestly, this is where building a product that is clearly differentiated and is able to add value over and above what a digital platform can, to my mind, will determine how long this genre actually exists and whether they're able to over-index on. Because the truth is that if I have to pay a premium for an English entertainment channel, I'm paying a premium for the audience, not for the content or for the channel. But I can target those same premium audiences very smartly on digital and possibly more effectively as well, because I can measure ROI quickly. And I think that if we don't change the nature of how English news channels position themselves, their content, and what they offer uniquely, I fear that actually they may be over-indexed today and they'll start seeing a decline in ad revenues because it will start moving to digital very, very quickly in a country like India, which is rapidly becoming digitized, right? If we come to language, I think there is still a lot more play because, yes, I think language content and language consumption of news is still picking up slowly, but it is happening, right? So if you look at platforms like Daily Hunt, languages, right? A lot of consumption is going there. We've seen the impact on print. We've seen a significant impact on print. And what is that? Print was also news consumed vociferously by this same audience. They've moved to digital. Now, if I start getting more and more digital Hindi or Tamil or Telugu news content on the digital platform, which is also live, and the way broadband connectivity in this country, the costs are so low and it's penetrating so deeply, over a period of time, albeit slower than English, I think the same thing will happen in the language news space as well. So I think they still have a longer runway, only because this country will take time when it comes to tier 2, tier 3 markets to gravitate to language news online. But I think there's a significant risk for the news genre on TV in this, given the context of how digital is taking over consumption. And therefore, I think
let's put this to the test.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Let's put this to the test, Anand. We have two marketeers here, right? So Prachi, your take on this very important thing. How will your mix be between digital news and TV news going forward? What changes do you expect?
What we have experienced as a brand right down from the lockdown is basically most of us actually moved to digital content, and actively so. Look at the numbers, like these are mind-boggling numbers. Half the country at this point of time is actively using internet. 45 crores smartphones out there. I mean, what else do you want? How do you actually refuse to look at such strong numbers and say that, okay, I'll not address this crowd over there? These are hard fact-stating numbers. And I mean, look at
Prachi, the whole safety, the fake news, the stuff that happens on digital, which is not.
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. I think Varun here mentioned very strongly about the content that they were putting out, right? And what is it that they were completely avoiding? And this is exactly what a brand like me would like to avoid. I would like to function in a very, very brand safe ecosystem. And that's definitely is a very huge, strong cause of concern. I mean, 2 weeks back, I think I was in a forum wherein we were talking about programmatic advertising and how difficult it is for us as brands to control any kind of news that actually gets itself at a space wherein I'm actually not wanting it to be. Forget about terrorist or negative impacted voice. I don't want to be seen on certain sites which might not be completely in sync with my brand. In fact, I consider them as a wastage of my money at this point in time. So I definitely, as a brand, would want to be very, very aware of it. What drives me as a brand to be positioned with any kind of, it's a brand sync. Whether it is any news channel or any GEC, I have to be in sync with the brand. A, as a brand, and B, with my campaign objective. That's precisely two things that increases my CPM and decreases my CPT. So that's precisely what I would be looking forward to. And those are the two asks on table. None of us as marketers, I don't think even Samir as a marketer would have any other major objective other than the revenue conversation. So these are two spaces which definitely is on table first. The second is, of course, what you mentioned. I definitely want to be in an ecosystem which gives me a safe space to operate. A question which came on table while we were operating in the entire space was, where does whose responsibility it is if you are not a brand safe environment? Is it the agency to be hanged, or is it the brand to be hanged? Come on, at the end of the day, it's the brand name. We are operating on this side of the table, you are operating on that side of the table. At the end of the day, when history is in making, it will be a brand name, it will not be an agency or a person. So at the end of the day, all of us are actually working towards a common objective, whether it's number, whether it's brand objective to be catered. So of course, there are two things on table which I definitely look for. Is more than TRP, I'm definitely looking for a brand safe environment, and definitely I'm looking for a bang for the buck that I'm spending. So these are the two primary space that I am operating on, and that's not going to change. That's for sure.
So, Prachi, very good point. Bang for my buck, brand safe environment, right?
Yeah.
Samir, you're someone who sells, quality, you sell, trust, right? What you're selling in effect is saying, give me your money. What do you prefer from someone in your position? Digital news, television news?
So two things, Ashish. I think we have been, like I told you, extremely bullish on television. One of the reasons for that is we are extremely, extremely ROI centric. We are obsessed about ROI. And what has happened with the upsurge of mobile ownership is that the dual screen phenomena has emerged quite a bit, and more so in the last couple of years. So what we see is every time we advertise on television, if I map the visitors on the website alongside the TV spot data, I see whenever there's a spot that's aired on TV, 10 seconds after that, we see the traffic on the website moving. And that is something that for us has gone hugely in favor of television. So every time a person is watching television, his handset is completely free to use, and he makes use of that, and he visits a website or checks something out on Google if something interests him, which is also in our case. So and unfortunately,
if I may say, Samir, I must interrupt to say that's also a function of your creatives. I think they're very, very good, I must say. So my point of view.
So I think they.
Carry on.
I think how you judge a creative is also personal assessment, but I would definitely say they're very media optimized. They're short format, and they help us make use of media in a lot more efficient way. And but like I said, the core difference between consuming news on OTT versus consuming news on television is that your handheld device is engaged while you're consuming news on OTT, which does sort of intermingle, does sort of contradict, and does sort of hold you back from visiting a website if something interests you right then and there. Obviously, it would leave an impression, and you would later on, if you so choose, you would want to check something out. But I think that's where it lags. Also, another point of view, I think while
Samir, very
Sorry.
interesting point. I just want to go a little deeper into what you must just mentioned. So what I'm hearing is that while I'm watching TV, if I like an ad, I can always take my phone out and do something there while continue to watch TV, which is my primary objective, is to get the news or to watch entertainment or whatever.
Exactly. See, TV viewership in the last few years has become a lot more passive than it earlier was. The only attention point where your furniture is pointed and where your eyes are pointed is your television set. These days, viewing is a lot more passive and it's a lot more distracted. You're constantly WhatsApping, you're constantly checking mails, and you're constantly doing something or the other with your phone. And that's also evident in the website traffic, like I told you. Another point I'd like to mention
Very
about
interesting. Very interesting.
online platforms for news, etc., is that let's be aware that the largest, the most subscribed news-related YouTube channel in India is Aaj Tak, which is repackaged TV news.
Yeah, yeah. And therefore, you make a good distinction between curated and uncurated news in that sense. And the importance that brand pays out there. So now, Varun,
Sorry, Ashish,
Varun,
if I just make a point, sorry. So just to make a point on what he was saying is that the fact that Aaj Tak is the largest news YouTube channel on digital means that using YouTube ads is the way to reach out to that audience, not advertising on the news channel necessarily. So I think you should keep in mind that even though the content is the same, the consumption is happening on a different platform. And I think that's what we have to watch out for. Television news consumption versus digital news consumption. Right? Because the way you advertise on both will be different.
But Anand, then let me play devil's advocate to that. Our TV news on consumption is only going up. So this is all incremental opportunity right now, right? We are not seeing TV news consumption actually falling. So why do you believe that this is a risk for TV news? Question one. Question two, in the long run, since most Aaj Taks have an online Aaj Tak, right? And most, all news channels have their online versions. Isn't this a bigger opportunity rather than a risk? Your point.
So the way I see it is that live content on digital will eventually have its own advertising stream. It will be sold separately. It will never be the same ads playing on TV that you will see on digital, right?
Yeah.
Now, why is consumption so high today? Already in IPL, in the last 3 weeks that we've got data for, we've seen a significant drop in primetime, non-primetime viewing of TV as a genre. The news genre specifically. The GEC genre has not been affected as much because original content is back. The big shows like KBC, Big Boss is back. And all original content is back. So the fact is that we are living in a time where the importance of news for a period of 7 months has been very high consistently, right? Yes, when elections come, we always see a blip and a consistent blip in news channels, or there's a major global event, etc. You definitely see that happen. The fact is that what we are seeing today is not normal news television viewing in this country. And I think what's happening is as we see different states returning to a different a normalcy in terms of mobility, right? So what we're doing is we're tracking the mobility of consumers using global mobility data. How many people are going back to work areas, etc. As that increases, you can see a clear correlation with the drop of TV ratings in non-prime time in those markets. So as the country moves back to normalcy in living, you will see a return of ratings. I don't think one can expect that suddenly because of COVID, there's going to be a permanent growth of news channel consumption in this country. Definitely not. Consumers are going to go back to entertainment. If anything, consumers want more entertainment. They don't want to hear news that is going to, put them, make them feel even more depressed. So I think we will see normalcy returning, and I think we have to recognize what's happened to print in the last 5 years. I don't think we can forget that, because 5 years ago, if we were having this webinar, we would have all been talking about the power of print, how credible it is, how powerful it is. It has got literally wiped out. And I think we underestimate the power of the consumer in this country to adopt new ways of consuming content that we've always done year after year. And the consumers always surprised and shocked us. Look at e-commerce. Massive shift in tier 2, tier 3 markets shopping online in these last 1 month. It's changing. I think we have to be geared for that change. And I think we'll be surprised at the change that will happen. It will hit us really fast.
So Anand, if there's so much change that's happening over here, and this question is for Ajay and you actually, are internet companies now buying it differently? Or are you still buying TV separate, digital separate? How is it working in the market now?
I think, look, I think we've moved to, I think all of us, including Ajay's team, your colleagues, we look at everything as from an integrated point of view, right? Because the fact is that you can reach the same audience today on digital and you can use the same consumer on TV as well. I think, the fact is that does television work? Of course, television works. Television is actually, the way I say this, television is the best performance marketing platform in this country because it actually translates into clear digital action. I think since the debate was more about news and other genres, I think there's no question about the power of TV in this country. But I think the fact is that consumers are watching content increasingly across different screens. So I think in a traditional, for maybe 2 years back, when we used to look at a TV plan and a digital plan, today when we present something called a video plan or a screen plan to the client. Just fundamentally, how will we plan for your ad to be seen on a 32-inch screen versus a 5.5-inch screen, or versus YouTube and an OTT and let's say a set of television channels. And that's how we look at it increasingly so. And all our tools and skill sets are built for that.
Another very important point. Are the news TV companies that you buy from ready with a sales team that sells together? Or are they still, they need to innovate better on that?
No, I think it
But I love
started,
your point of view. And on this as
no, it has started, but I think it's very, very far away from having teams. And we've seen it in print, where print hard copy teams, selling teams are now also trying to sell their digital feeds. But I think it requires an organization to relook at the kind of teams they have to be able to sell both effectively. Right? I think the skill set of selling television is a very well-established one. They're very clear parameters, but when you start talking digital, I think the metrics and the way you look at it, while fundamentally maybe the same, but you still have to look at them through a slightly different lens. And I think sometimes the capabilities of doing that are not as effective as we would like to see.
And when you bring digital and TV together to be sold by the same team, then Ajay, how are you seeing it? Is the news industry equipped well for that combined sales? And Varun, I'm going to come to you after this to ask you.
No, so I think TV news companies are moving in this direction. More and more, you're seeing integration, trying to integrate at various levels. So it is very it is happening at an agency end. We are looking at it as a consumer, and it's kind of seamless. There is a consumer journey. Where is the consumer on that journey, and what is the most relevant at that point of time, really? And that's the way we're trying to work. And I think Andy made a very, very strong point about the creative that you run on each of these media. I think that is very, very important. The way you use the media is extremely critical. For years, we have seen GRPs and search trends following the same kind of trends. This has been there for years, and television definitely adds in to digital, like even Samir was talking about. So what is that communication that will draw the audience in and attract them is what you possibly need here on digital. While that is also important, being shorter, because people's time attention span is a lot lower because they can move to something else. And like Samir was saying earlier, they actually are there for another reason on that same instrument, and therefore to get them to divert their attention to something else is a little bit more difficult. So you need to use these media effectively, and the truth is that you need to use both of them. It's not an either or. Both are extremely important. Both will remain. Television though might see quite a few changes going forward. So you have the subscriber model suddenly coming up, and like Andy's saying, these things they suddenly take a life of their own and start moving forward, and that might change things a little bit going down the future.
So, Varun, coming to you with the last question before we head into the wrap up. How are you seeing the new environment? What are the challenges you're facing in digital plus TV sales? How does it work for you?
I don't see it as a challenge. I see it as an opportunity, right? So the content that we were creating for television, which was the broadcast media, we tweak it a little and put it on our digital mobile sites, which earns us an next revenue. We make speciality for OTT platforms, which creates another revenue. So from the same set of audiences or the teams that we have 3 different models running together. Now, I'll just take a point to elaborate what I wanted to say on what Prachi also said. There are X news channels which have grown considerably with the kind of news which was sensational, right? I have at least seen 12 top brands avoiding those platforms. So news as an organization will also have to reinvent as per what the brands want. So that was missing earlier. I see a lot of this happening in COVID, because in COVID, a lot of people gave a lot of thinking towards brands, which was missing earlier. Earlier, it was all dal chawal and everybody was advertising everywhere or to a large extent. Now, I 100% agree with what Anand has been telling, that news channels, a lot of people have their views of good, bad, ugly, whatever. But I feel over the next 4-5 months, you will see news as a genre evolving completely. I'll give you a small example, like a 2 to a 4 slot in the afternoon is for women. We are going to extend it to 6, So we want to get more audiences coming in, and they have a certain specialized type of news that they want. And it works big time for us in terms of even creating a non-prime time news into an afternoon prime time slot per se. So evolution of a medium will happen. But I'll give you a small example of my own, which happened during the COVID time. Every day I used to get at least 100 videos from my friends or fraternity or people asking, is this authentic or not? So till a legislation doesn't come on digital, people will still not believe in like a small video of a today.
Varun, you had to say that. You have no choice.
I just want to complete today's video, which will fetch you, where people said that in a Pakistan legislation, people were chanting Modi, Modi, Modi. They were not talking Modi, Modi, Modi. They were talking voting, voting, voting. That's what digital does. So I'm saying till a legislation.
So your role as is more of curation than anything else, is what I'm seeing right now, right? And therefore the value for curation is higher. But sorry, Varun, we are running out of time. So I'm going to ask you one final small question. I want an answer in one sentence on this.
Okay.
CPRP, as your reach has grown, right?
Yeah.
Your audience universe has grown. Your CPRP will become just so bloody attractive right now. Yeah. All right. But do you think you should be sold on CPR?
No,
I don't. Is it time to move to effective rate? Is it time to move for CPT? What's the thing from you?
All the models are existing simultaneously, but we are more on the effective rate phenomena still than the CPRP. The day we get into a model where it's a paid subscription model, then we will get into CPRP.
Got it. Okay, I think we're out of time. So I'm going to ask all of you to, in one sentence, give me my final, final kind of comments from your side to say, what's your mantra for the next 12 months? So Prachi, starting with you, how are you going to look at the news television piece in the next 12 months?
I'll take a cue from what Andy was already mentioning. I think I, as a brand or an advertiser, would like to have a package solution, and it should be media agnostic. At this point of time, what I'm looking for is a one-stop shop. And that should be, that is the ask on the table, and that should be completely met with the requirement from both the broadcasters as well as the buying agencies. I think that should be met as a requirement from that.
So a lot of innovation required in putting together package solutions. But would you be willing to deal directly with broadcasters for that, or would you still put agency
I'm not going to answer it on this forum.
I was so hoping you would say that. But anyway, Sabi, your point of view.
Bullish on news. To give you some sense how bullish, I think in the last 5-6 years, we've done more than 100 TV campaigns. Not even a single one was without news. I think this would be the way going forward. I think what I do expect is that, like Ajay mentioned, most of the news is sort of centered around and sold around and packaged around the 8 and 9 p.m. My time slots. I do wish the channels would create a few more slots like that throughout the day as well. I think since COVID, a lot of people who earlier used to advertise only prime time, have started advertising non-prime time also. So I think instead of run-of-the-mill news broadcasts around those times, maybe some curated and special focused time bands would sort of help drive the non-prime time viewership as well.
Interesting. And I think very good inputs over there. Ajay, how would you look at it? next
I
12
think
months for news?
in the next 12 months, news will be in the news.
But will news continue to have its power? It's got a lot of power due to COVID. Will it sustain?
Yeah, I think for the next, the next 12 months. Why next 12 months? I do believe in the strength of news. I do believe in that there is an audience which is there. Like I said in the beginning, there is an audience which is loyal to it, and there are an increasing number of fluctuating audiences coming in because of the varied kind of information and the material, the content available on news. So I do believe it's strong, and I do believe that it will continue to be in the news, and it will be continued to be discussed like this, the way we are discussing it, and in many other forums.
And I loved your point, Ajay, on the fact that I think the kind of content that's coming on news channels is really evolving to reach a wider audience and stay more relevant in this world. But I'm sorry, I must ask you a small sub-question to that before I move on to Anand, which is that, do you believe that there's going to be more, how do we say, sub-genre specialization within news channels? For example, even within Hindi news, do you think there will be different channels with different slants? And will that work for the industry better? Or do you think that the mass news will still this will always be a mass product without much differentiation?
I think there is already a surfeit of channels available. There is one genre which is the stock genre, I guess, which is the share market genre, which has a place for itself. But I think beyond that, we don't have the appetite for going beyond that yet.
Got it. Got it. Anand, your take. Next 12 months, how would you predict this?
God, what I would hope for is that news channels become news channels, and they stay news channels. I'm a consummate optimist, and I hope that will happen for the sake of this country. But from a media perspective, look, I honestly believe that we've seen a significant jump up in ratings because of a certain environment that we are in. I think proof of that is today, as soon as IPL switches on, news has been switched off. You can see the significant drop in ratings. So the fact is that as we move to normalcy, I think not that news is ever going to become irrelevant. News channels will always be relevant, but I think over the next 3 to 4 months, as the country moves back to normalcy, I think we will see viewership going to that level. To my mind, entertainment is the domain of certain kind of teams and capabilities and should remain with them. News is the domain of certain kind of teams and capabilities and should be the core focus. I think mixing the two is a short-term gain, not a long-term strategy.
Very interesting point. Varun, as the only representative from the genre being discussed, amidst the sea of your stakeholders, I'll ask you to wrap up with your trends for the next 12 months.
See, the news will be relevant for the next 12 months or till 2024, 2028. That's a topic which we'll discuss every now and then. But news will move towards infotainment in a much bigger way. The news channels have to evolve themselves for bringing information which is not only gloomy to an information which is also in a happy state of mind also. Because at the end of the day, advertisers or viewers, both with our researches that we go through, help us evolve that. So I think in next 12 months, you'll see news channels evolving big time. Though we have started doing it, I see a lot of that happening. So one end of the curve will be very, very massy. The other end might be very classy. So you will see everybody carving their own niche.
But you're saying there's a place for a classy news channel on TV, or is that a digital product?
But there is a place provided people want to experiment with it. See, with COVID, majority of the news channels that I know have experimented a lot with the content, how the content needs to go and all. So a lot of thinking on the brand has come. Plus, a lot of brands going away from channels which were sensational has brought a lot of sanity towards the channel, towards the genre. Because there are a lot of channels which do their own sort of work to get eyeballs. There are channels which do a different kind of work to get eyeballs, right? So I'm saying they will coexist, but you will see a huge differentiation between what channels you want to watch and what channels you don't want to watch. So that will happen in the next 12 months, right? And the only yardstick will not be rating. The yardstick will also be a client viewing, because this is the only genre where the client has also a preference towards the next channel or a Y channel, depending on what he wants to see.
Okay, so I think very interesting where you're saying not going to be only rating, because we are in a situation now where we don't have ratings for a few weeks. So I think from what I'm taking away from here is that there's a lot of innovation that's required in the industry on a content side, on the brand side, brand becoming very, very, very important. And of course on the rating side as well, but also on how news channels sell their ads, the packages that are required by advertisers are becoming more important with FCT and non-FCT elements. Very important also to have a digital platform and to learn to sell all that together. Quality of news, Anand spoke about that several times to say, stick to news, be credible, big difference in curated, non-curated news platforms, and that should drive really value. But at the end of the day, news is a necessity. It has a bunch of loyal audiences, and I don't think the demand for that is going anywhere. So I think on that note, I would hand this back to the producers, and thank you all, Prachi, Samir, Varun, Ajay, and Anand. I enjoyed myself moderating this panel. I hope you enjoyed participating. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
As well.
Good fun.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ashish.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I thank you all for such a mind-stimulating discussion. We now have a presentation by Mr. Dan Alberton, founder and CEO, Megaphone TV. Welcome, Mr. Alberton, and over to you.
Here, I'm going to come in here a second, Dan, before you start. A big welcome to you, Dan. You're in Atlanta, right?
Yep, just outside of Atlanta, that's right.
Fantastic. Good to have you here. And the reason we got you on board is because these are tough times for the news industry, and there can be news solutions which can be found wherein news channels can monetize them better. And I believe your solution, Megaphone TV, which we are helping you with in the Indian context, is a solution that can help news channels monetize themselves better. So I'm really looking forward to your presentation and helping advertisers as well as channels understand how they can work together so that they can build a good consumer connect with a good consumer connect. So over to you. It's late at night there. I won't speak a lot. It's over to you now, Dan. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome everyone. I'm here on the east coast of the U.S. It is currently 3:30 a.m. So this is a very exciting morning for me. Thank you for having me. And to follow on with actually what the previous presenters were just saying in the very end, I do like the idea of better news in 2021. Boy, we could use that. I think 2020 has been dominated by bad news. So hopefully at least some of that starts to change on Tuesday. We'll see what happens. But in the world of, and as our previous panelists said, news needs to be entertaining, sometimes needs to be uplifting, needs to have a digital component. And actually one of the things that we really think about a lot is that the news should involve the viewer. We are, for the last, let's say 100 years, we've been in the era of broadcast, where I am speaking to you as I'm the broadcaster, I'm speaking to you, the audience, and it's a one-way communication. With the advent of these devices and many other things, we can now have a two-way conversation. I can get things back from the viewer, and I can have a new relationship with the viewer in a digital context, and that's where Megaphone comes in. So Megaphone is a viewer engagement platform, and nobody knows what that means because it's something we made up. So what does that really involve? For any live video, whether you're on an over-the-air system or a cable system or a satellite system or any kind of streaming system, we believe that you can have a deeper engagement with the video asset as it happens live. And we do that through 4 or 5 different categories of products, which I'm going to actually demonstrate and you're going to go play along with live today. We do things in the first category of maybe polling or trivia, polling or opinion or audience sentiment. The second category would be things like trivia, which can include prediction and also loyalty programs. The third category is social, where we do social media harvest and display and chat. We also do social streaming. So that's, in the social platforms or OTT platforms as well. And the last big thing we do is transactional advertising as part of a broadcast, branded content, of course, but also literally transactional advertising where you can have lead generation during the broadcast itself. This is the vision of Megaphone TV. I'm actually now going to share my screen and we're going to play along with this together. So all of you who are out there, just hang on one second while I share my screen. And you'll notice I'm sharing my web browser but I'm going to hide the fact that this is a web browser. We'll just remember this is in the browser. But all of you out there, please get out your mobile and please go to this URL you see, gomptv.com. Please go there on your phone right now. I'll just give you all a couple of seconds to get connected with me. And we're going to actually play along with live case studies of what it is Megaphone does. So again, please get out your mobile device, go to GOMPTV, the URL you see in the screen here, and we will play along together shortly. So as we're getting everybody to join, I will wait for people to join for a second. And if you can't see my video, if you can't see my full screen video, give me a shout. Let me know if anything's wrong. But if you can see it, again, please get out your mobile device. Go to gomptv.com. So as I wait for a few folks to connect, Megaphone works with broadcasters around the world now. And we work with three main categories of broadcasters. We work in the world of sports. Obviously, live sports is fun to play along with. We work with entertainment programmers, which can include talk shows, game shows, reality shows, competition shows. But our biggest category of broadcaster we work with is news broadcasters. We work with over 80 newsrooms around the country, including in the US. We work with the ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, all of those groups. We also work with CNN, especially on an international basis. So I'm going to show you the way those folks use use Megaphone and news, and also show you a number of different ways that they monetize their news. So again, if you're watching along and you want to play along, I want some volunteers with me. Please get out your device, actually really any device, and go to gomptv.com, gomptv.com. Again, you can connect on a mobile, a tablet, a desktop, whatever device you want, you can connect. So let's give folks a couple of seconds to get connected, and then we'll push forward. All right, and folks can join late if they want to. So I'm going to get started with my interactive portion of this presentation. However, if you want to join, you can join at any moment. All you have to do is go to that URL. So let me know if you have any trouble doing that. And again, in just a couple of seconds, we are going to get started. Okay, so let's look at what interactive news broadcasting can be, and also what the revenue opportunities are that might be on the back of that. And moderators, if you could do me a favor and tell folks the URL possibly in chat or in any other way while I get started. I don't want to have anybody who wants to play along get stuck if they can't. Okay, so briefly about Megaphone. We do work with all the major US broadcasters. We have 3 Emmy nominations and 1 win. We also work with a huge number of US local stations, so tons of experience in the world of news. I'm going to use my secret Megaphone control panel here, and I'm going to jump around to an actual interactive news broadcast. So I'm going to go to my news section of my presentation. I'll hide my secret control panel, and here we go. Here's our first example. So again, if you're not playing along, what I have in my phone here, and I'll hold it up to the webcam, hopefully so you guys can see it. I have questions on my phone. Oops, I've got to figure out how to get the dimmer here. I have questions on my phone, or sorry, answers on my phone that match the questions I'm seeing on screen in the lower third. So you should be seeing our news broadcast here. We've got our 2 anchors talking. We're doing a live political debate, and we have questions on air. Which topic deserves more discussion tonight? You can see that people are voting. So our lower third graphics are updating live instantaneously. So as soon as you vote, boom, the percentages are changing on air. So what you're having here is a live poll through your device that matches lower third graphics that are in the broadcast. Now, these lower third graphics are generated right off of a web browser. They completely match the graphics that are coming from the graphics system in the studio. So if you're using a Chiron or a VizRT, you can actually pull Megaphone data into those systems with an API if you want to, or very commonly, Megaphone builds a full set of working graphics for you. And this is what they look like. They look like the graphics that come out of a Chiron or a VizRT, but they're live and interactive. So we can see people are voting along, and the percentages are changing of what the audience wants to hear about tonight in the debate. All of that's being fed back into the studio instantaneously in real time. And what that means is our anchor here on the right-hand side of the screen during this debate, when the audience voted for the topic that was most important for them, she picked up the stack of questions for that topic and started asking them to the candidates. So this is a political debate where the audience controls what the topic coming up next is for each of the candidates. We are literally participating in the debate in a way that, of course, we could never do before. A very direct, a very clear example. All of this is white labeled, all of it's on brand and controlled by the station itself. The questions in Megaphone are written by the producers, and the technical director there chooses when to bring them on air. Let's look at another example. Also talk about a little bit of content. We spend in the States a lot of time at the anchor desk. Our two anchors are talking, and they're talking about some topic that we've recently run a package on. This is one of my favorite examples. This is a station in Denver, Colorado, here in America. And the mayor's office was trying to figure out why people don't come to downtown Denver anymore. They're having like an urban problem. And they didn't know what the problem was, but people weren't visiting this big downtown open air mall anymore. So the mayor's office chose to spend millions of dollars fixing the downtown lighting, making it look really, really nice. Some of the places were a little dark, maybe a little scary before, spent millions of dollars on lighting. This station then did a report on the mayor's office spending so much money on the lighting downtown, and where did they spend it, who did it, what, which contractors were doing it, where did they put the lights, why, all of that. And over the course of this package report, that was like 3.5 minutes, they asked the audience, why don't you visit downtown anymore? Well, the answers came in, and in real life, nobody voted that lighting was the problem. Almost everybody, about 80% of the people said homelessness was the problem, and about 20% said it was parking costs. And so these two anchors were very surprised, and they said on air, because they of course did not know what the results of the poll would be ahead of time. They said, wow, look at this. People in Denver don't actually care about the problem that the mayor's office was trying to solve, the lighting, and the mayor's office doesn't care about the problem that people in Denver care about. This was in a non-election year. And so of course there was no polling on lots of different topics. And so this station now had a statistical report and a video asset showing that the mayor was solving things the people didn't care about. So the next day after this vote happened, they sent their reporters back down to the mayor's office and said, hey, Mr. Mayor, we have a report. You're actually focusing city money on the wrong things. What do you have to say for yourself? And now they have a follow-up piece of content because the audience vote became the primary piece of content. And now the reporting from the news station around the topic itself became the secondary content, meaning the audience vote happened on air first, and then the reporters doing the follow-up and talking to someone at the mayor's office was the second piece of content. Now, I'm hearing in the background from one of my colleagues that we're going to have a pretty large delay on this call. So I realize that some of you actually may be hearing me like in the past, and I'm in the future for you, and the interactivity that you're seeing in the broadcast may not perfectly sync up with what's on your phone. That's actually a problem that we're well aware of, and this is actually something that happens in the world of streaming a lot. If most of you, I'm sure, work in television, as you're probably well aware, you can have a delay on over-the-air broadcasts of maybe 3 or 4 or 5 seconds. You can have a delay in a cable broadcast of maybe 7 or 8 seconds. That's common in the US, or a satellite transmission might be 12 seconds. Strangely, as a native internet guy, I'm always surprised that internet broadcasts have such a long delay. It's actually ironic. That's something we have built a product that's a low latency streaming platform specifically to solve this kind of problem. So if some of you out there are seeing things on your phone that may be delayed or not in sync with what I'm showing you in the video, I apologize for that. That's just the nature of some online broadcasts. Okay. So I'm going to move on from this example. I'm going to bring up my secret megaphone control panel here again, and I think I'll show just one more example. Maybe, sorry, I'm going to show you one more example for our friends over at CNN. So CNN did something interesting I like. During the whole coverage of Brexit last year, they allowed the audience to vote on different options on Brexit all throughout their debates. They would have a discussion where they had experts on for a couple of hours, and they would let the audience at home vote which option they should take in the world of Brexit. And that's a panel of experts. They had economists, social scientists, legal scholars, and the irony of the experiment was that as the audience voted for whatever Brexit option they wanted, their panelists would explain all the different benefits and problems with that. But mostly there were just problems with it. I mean, as we know, Brexit's a total disaster. And so as we, the audience, were selecting which things that we wanted, we would get explained to us all the problems with it. And we got to almost act as if we were the members of parliament, and we got to choose all the different bad choices as we went. I mean, there were no good options, but we got to choose each bad path we wanted. And as we chose each one by voting, during the broadcast through megaphone, the panelists, the expert panelists would respond, okay, you've now made this choice. Here is the outcome, and here are the other next bad choice you must make about how it's going to work. It was sort of an interactive way for people to experience what was going to happen in Brexit, even though they were just viewers, not MPs themselves. Okay, I'll show one other thing because I want to show Megaphone's interactive advertising and sponsorship capabilities. So I'll go to my sponsorship and advertising section here, and we'll do that quickly because I want to show what can be done in the world of sponsorship and advertising with Megaphone, and especially can be done in news. I'm going to start in some sports news because it's a nice integrated example, but this can be done in any kind of broadcast. So this is a very popular hockey show in Canada, and I'm just going to use it as an example to show what can be done in the world of Megaphone advertising. So they might say something like, hey, thanks for playing along with tonight's show. We're having tonight's hockey debate. Who should be the new goalie for the Edmonton Oilers hockey team? Cam Talbot, Mikko Koskinen, or someone else? Do us a favor, give us a vote on your phone right now. You've been hearing the debate from our reporters, all through that last segment. And then as people get ready to vote, they're going to throw in, oh, by the way, tonight's show is brought to you by the Aquaman movie. Tonight's interactivity is powered by Aquaman. Everybody who votes on tonight's poll gets a chance to watch the exclusive Aquaman trailer before it's available online, before it's available on YouTube. Just click and vote. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but when I click and vote, I get a pop-up message right here on my phone that says, oh, would you like to see the new Aquaman trailer? It says, no thanks, or click here. And if I click right here on my device, it pops up the Aquaman trailer right on the site. I can see the trailer before anybody else in the country gets to see it, again, on YouTube or in theaters. So what you're looking at is what Megaphone calls pop-up offers. When you vote in Megaphone, which some of you have just done, something appears on your screen that's a call to action. It lets you get more information or buy a product or something like that. So this specific pop-up offer that Aquaman has used is pop up and watch exclusive content. We also have pop up and get a coupon, pop up and enter a contest, pop up and download an app, pop up and click to call a retailer, pop up and do geolocation to be driven to the closest branch of a certain retailer. So in addition to Megaphone focusing on the content side of things, we also focus on the monetization side of things through branded content and direct lead gen through pop-up offers. I will now just leave my presentation in my browser, and I'll go over to, let me just move Zoom out of the way here. I will go over to something that we have available on Megaphone's website right now. So our website is megaphonetv.com, and we have a section for newsroom revenue. So you can just search for newsroom revenue and you'll find us. And here we have examples of newsrooms using Megaphone to generate revenue. So for instance, here's WFAA, a news broadcaster, and they have a Ford sponsorship on one of their call-in shows. This is a sports call-in show. This is the Cowboys football show. So I will actually full screen this, and hopefully you guys can see it. So, they're saying, what should the Cowboys do with our new our new player? Should we pay him, get rid of him, trade him? Okay, it's a sports call-in show with viewers from home, sponsored by a local Ford dealer. If I go down here to another show, we have another sports broadcaster, and they're doing a sports debate show, again, sponsored by another automotive company, sponsored by Kia. If I scroll down even farther, we've got a telecom here. So this is ABC 7 New York, their Eyewitness News. They're having an interactive broadcast with polling on all sorts of different topics, sponsored by Spectrum Mobile. That's the big telecom here in New York. And similarly, when I get down here to WVEC, this is sponsored by the telecom and the cable provider, which is Cox. And I'll just jump around to get some of their interactivity up. They're talking about a very touchy subject, which is the kind of ban on abortion in Alabama and how it's being restricted in that state. So they're covering, quite serious news topics here that are very, very, very touchy. So we have multiple examples of sponsorship in news and branded content, but generally speaking, the idea behind the Megaphone platform, and I'll wrap up here and get ready to take questions, is we can make really engaging content. I will actually pause and I will go and get our big election coverage. We've been doing, of course, quite a bit of election coverage recently. So I'll play the election coverage in the background as I'm finishing. Megaphone has a simple idea. Now that people have mobile devices and everybody's got laptops and computers in their home, the way they interact with media can be completely different. They are no longer consumers, they are now participants. Once they're participants, you can make them part of the content, which makes an entirely new type of news content. I've shown you news, but we also do silly game shows and fun competition shows and all that kind of stuff. And now when they join in and they're part of the content, they're leaning forward, they're clicking along with the show. Now they can lean forward and easily click along with the advertisers as well. So I wanted to present to you the Megaphone platform, how we think about news gathering and news participation, but also newsroom revenue. We've been doing this for quite a few years now, and it's only getting more exciting. I'm happy to have any questions from you, the viewers, today, or if you want to, you can always contact us through our website, megaphonetv.com. Moderators, I hope you have some questions for me.
Yeah, I have a question for you. Can you hear me, Dan?
Yes, I can. Yep.
So where do you see this being applied in India?
That's a great question. So I don't know a huge amount about Indian news, kind of like the beat of the day. So I'll tell you about the American beat of the day in news. You can tell me how this fits. So in American news, almost all stations have a long morning show that runs from maybe 5 a.m. to like 8 a.m. So they got like a 3-hour news in the morning, and it'll cover local news, national news, international news, sports, weather, traffic, all that kind of stuff. And it's very common that people are going to use Megaphone all throughout that morning news. But that's what I consider hard news. Megaphone works great in hard news. There's so many crazy things happening all the time, so many things that people want to give their opinion on, so many ways we can actually change people's minds about the world around us just by giving our opinion. Works great in that kind of morning hard news. We then move in, at least in the States, we move into usually some lifestyle news. That's usually around 10 a.m. or so. It's a 1-hour show. We call them the more sales-friendly shows. There's a lot more like cooking segments and product segments. There's a lot more sponsor integration, a lot less serious news, maybe totally different anchors, a totally different set. Again, works great there. You can have the audience participate in all kinds of different segments like that. We have some broadcasters that are, hey, what are we going to cook this morning? You guys get to pick the choice there. We traditionally have a noon news, so that's from noon to 1 o'clock. We then have our evening news. We have our first round of evening news from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And then we have another round from 11 o'clock to midnight. Then, of course, on the weekends, we're going to have a lot of sporting news. We're going to have what we call in-depth programming. So especially in America on the Sunday mornings, we have a lot of Sunday morning political debate shows. They're a whole category themselves. So any news broadcast that feels like it wants to more deeply engage its viewership and have its viewership opinion be part of the show, that's a perfect fit for what we do.
Thank you.
One of the things we do as Megaphone is provide extensive consulting to every broadcaster to take them from we've never heard of the idea of interactive news to you're going to be interactive news experts when you're done with our training program.
Yeah. So what kind of monetization do these guys manage? Is it they do annual deals? They do for with partners, with brands, etc. And how are you working in India as far as your product is concerned?
Okay, yeah. So what kind of deals do they do? All right, very common that they'll do something like, hey, for this entire year, here is the sponsor of interactivity across our station. So they'll say it's time for our Megaphone poll tonight, brought to you by, Earnhardt Automotive's, Ford dealership. And so as a viewer of the broadcast, you're going to hear tonight's interactivity brought to you by Earnhardt Automotive. You're going to hear it 1,000 times over the course of the year. But that's up to that broadcaster if they want to. A lot of times they'll sell a sponsorship either on a monthly basis across the entire channel, or they might sell it for a year across a show, but they'll sell it monthly on a different show. So it's completely up to the ad sales teams at that station. We also provide them with the training. What are the Megaphone ad sales products? How do you best use them and how should you sell them? So really, you can slice it any way you want. We've seen news broadcasts where they have sponsor A in the first 30 minutes and sponsor B in the last 30 minutes. Totally up to the station, totally up to their sales team. In terms of working in the Indian market, I personally am fascinated by India. I've been there many times, but really only as a tourist. I've only been there for business once. What's fascinating to me about India is the multicultural, multi-language nature of the size and diversity of the country. So in America, of course, we have, very different regions around the country. They have very different flavors. For example, when we look at how did the president do in tonight's debate across every megaphone station, all 80 megaphone news stations across the US, obviously there are regional differences. I think it'll be extremely interesting to see the regional differences across India and possibly even compare them. I'm interested to see maybe there's one station group that's going to say, hey, we're doing megaphone in different languages or different regions, and then we're taking those and comparing, contrasting them. Megaphone is really a way to get like the heartbeat of your viewers when it's not an election cycle where you aren't doing traditional or formal polling. It's if you don't have ratings, actually, it's a good proxy for ratings. Some of our broadcasters use their megaphone ratings, how many people played with megaphone, as a proxy for their actual news ratings. So I think the possibilities are endless. But one thing I'll say is, when I've been in India, something that I really liked seeing was that the TV anchors, the tough ones, when they're asking questions to politicians, are really tough. American anchors are so weak. They ask a question, the candidate doesn't answer the question, and they just give up. But I've seen a number of anchors there really grind candidates down. Hey, you need to answer this. Nope, that wasn't the answer. Try again. Please answer. Try again. I think it would be very interesting to see a tough anchor with megaphone opinion from the big audience, guiding the conversation and letting the audience really drill down and force a candidate, a politician, somebody important in government or business to answer those questions. So in America, we say it's a way to hold people's feet to the fire to make them tell you the truth. But unfortunately, many of our news stations and our news anchors are too scared to do it. I would like to see a tougher anchor there take that tradition and use megaphone as a tool to do it. So that's my hope and my prediction for megaphone in India in the coming year.
And how are you structuring your entry into India? There's Alex in Europe, and then we're working with you to help you get outreach into India. So
yep, absolutely. So we've partnered with Anil and his whole crew over at Indian Television. We've known them for a while now and met them in person a number of times. Obviously, they know the industry and understand, the concepts of digital products being brought to news. So Megaphone has a global manager. He's on the call with us today. And we also then have Anil and Indian Television as our local representatives in India. We couldn't be more excited to announce our partnership with them, which we've just finalized in the last few weeks. So if you're interested in this concept, please talk to Anil, and then he will be bringing in all the producers and all the technologists from the Megaphone side to bring this new world of interactivity to you.
Thank you very much, Dan. It's been wonderful listening to you. I hope Indian News takes it up. I believe we've had a few conversations. They seem very interested, and we're having meetings next week with them. But it was good, watching this from you in person. I've watched it from your other people, but it was fantastic watching it from you in person. And
well, thanks
all the best to all of us as we make our journey into India. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me.
You stayed up late.
Yeah, I'm going back to bed now.
Thank you very much for doing this. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you.
That was an interesting presentation. Thank you for sharing that with us, Mr. Alberton. We now move on to the last and final segment for the day, a virtual fireside chat with Mr. Sudhir Chaudhary, CEO and Editor-in-Chief of Zee News, in conversation with Mr. Anil Vanwari. I welcome you both, and over to you, Mr. Vanwari.
Good afternoon. It's been a very long morning, and thank you to the audience who's been so patiently watching us through the day and who will continue watching us on our social media outlets. And we've had thousands of people watching us on indiantelevision.com. Thank you for watching us and being a part of what we've put out as an eye-opener for the news industry at a time when it's in a very fragile time right now. But nonetheless, onto our session. News anchors are loved. News anchors are hated as well. That's because they're the face on screen who relay the news, the information. Sudhir Chaudhary, however, is another kind of professional, a rare breed. Not only is he the face of Zee News, he's also the CEO of the network. So he carries a dual responsibility. Over the past 2 days, we've spoken to journalists, editors, advertisers, agencies, CEOs, and CTOs of news channels. Now it's a turn to talk to a professional who wears two hats. Welcome, Sudhir. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So how are you doing? What's up?
Good, Anil. As you know, every newsroom is a madhouse, and so is Z News. And right now, I'm just sitting next to the newsroom, and as usual, the news flow is fast, and it's loud. It's breaking news, raining all the time.
Breaking news right now. What's breaking?
So the breaking news is the reaction on the France story right now, coming from all over the world, especially from different cities in India. So there's a very heavy reaction on these killings in France.
Yeah, Nice. I've been to that church actually.
Okay.
So when I get into MIPCOM I go there thrice a year, and I've been in that church, walked past it on Avenue Jean Médecin, as it's called, in Nice.
Okay.
So it's sad, yeah. But the reactions are very, very. There's reactions coming not just from India, from other countries. Turkey's, come against it, saying that why is France reacting so much? A ban on French goods is coming up from several Arabic nations.
Anil, it's very challenging for media right now, because the world is polarized on this issue. Even the media is polarized on this issue. And there are very, two distinct and very strong viewpoints, and they are just opposite to each other. And it's very difficult for media right now to maintain a balance and, report it without imposing its own analysis and its own views. And that's the whole point right now. People are, one section of the society is criticizing us for imposing our own thoughts and seeing it through our own filters. And at the same time, people are questioning the neutrality of media. So, it's a big debate. Media is supposed to be neutral. Media is supposed to tell you what is right and what is wrong. Is media supposed to take sides? So it's a difficult position for journalists right now world over, especially in India also.
I get it. So, but you're not only a journalist, you're also a executive. You have management oversight of this network. Which one takes precedence? Sudhir Chaudhary, the journalist, or Mr. Sudhir Chaudhary, the business person?
I guess, I have been a reporter for such a long time. So I still feel that, I look at things through my lens as a reporter, as a journalist. And I still feel that, as a journalist, if you can improve your product, then it helps the CEO Sudhir Chaudhary to sell the product. So it's very important that, organically you have to improve the product. Organically, you have to, reach out to the masses. So the main question which I believe, and I ask to everybody in my team, who is our client? Who are our clients? So if you meet a CEO who comes from the sales background, he says, the advertisers are our clients. But somebody like me, who has been a journalist for all those years, I feel the viewers are our clients. Viewers are the main clients. Viewers are watching us, and that's why we are selling that reach. We are selling that our positioning to our clients, the advertisers.
Okay. So, but are you in an advantageous position because you're wearing dual hats? क्या आपको कुछ advantage है अभी क्योंकि आप दो टोपियां पहनते हो?
I think मदद मिलती है, बहुत मदद मिलती है. अगर एक ऐसा CEO जो कि पैराड्रॉपिंग करके सीधे आया है and does not understand the nitty-gritties of the trade, उसकी बजाय अगर एक ऐसा CEO है जो कि इस ट्रेड में रहा है 20-30 साल, तो मुझे लगता है बहुत मदद मिलती है. और व्यूअर्स की जो पल्स है उसको समझने में आपको बहुत मदद मिलती है. See, after all, it's a medium of mass communication. You want your viewers to come to you, you want your viewers to trust you and to continue watching you. उसके लिए आपके पास एक प्रोफेशनल एडिटर की जरूरत है, और वो प्रोफेशनल एडिटर अगर कमर्शियल कॉल्स भी ले सकता है कि मेरे प्रोडक्ट के लिए क्या अच्छा है, वेयर शुड आई कॉम्प्रोमाइज. मुझे टेक फॉर एग्जांपल, छोटा सा एक आपको एग्जांपल देता हूँ कि मेरा एयर टाइम एडिटोरियल एयर टाइम और कमर्शियल एयर टाइम का रेशो क्या होना चाहिए किसी खास दिन। तो मुझे लगता है कि वो एक, अगर वो एडिटोरियल आदमी प्रोफेशनल इज टेकिंग अ फाइनल कॉल, इट हेल्प्स।
तो आजकल कितना है जी न्यूज पे? क्या 18 मिनट, 20 मिनट? क्योंकि
जी न्यूज ट्रेडिशनली, या सो जी न्यूज ट्रेडिशनली बहुत हैवी रहा है कमर्शियल टाइम में, एंड इवन टुडे आई थिंक इफ यू calculate the air time, the commercial air time, I think we should be in the top 2 who are, I mean, very heavy on commercial inventory.
तो मार्केट टर्न अराउंड हो रहा है कि वॉल्यूम बढ़ रहा है और रेट्स नहीं बढ़ रही है?
देखिए, मैंने अभी 2 हफ्ता पहले रेट्स बढ़ाए हैं।
ठीक है।
और इस दौरान सारे लोग यही कह रहे थे कि मार्केट नीचे जाएगा। बहुत सारी जगहों पे सैलरी कट्स हुए। तो 2-3 चीजें मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूँ। जी मीडिया में कोई सैलरी कट्स नहीं हुए, हमने कोई जॉब कट्स भी नहीं किए, हमने सिर्फ अपने खर्चे थोड़े से कम किए हैं, और उसके बाद ये वक्त में आके हमने अपना प्राइस थोड़ा सा और बढ़ा दिया है। लेकिन जब कोविड क्राइसिस जैसा टाइम आता है तो न्यूज फॉल बहुत बढ़ जाता है, न्यूज की व्यूअरशिप बहुत बढ़ जाती है, बिकॉज पीपल आर हंग्री फॉर इंफॉर्मेशन, पीपल वांट टू नो वट एवर इज हैपनिंग, दे वांट टू नो द लेटेस्ट। सो हमारे लिए न्यूज के लिए वो एक अपॉर्चुनिटी होती है, और मुझे लगता है कि वो अपॉर्चुनिटी में आपको यू शुड कमांड अ प्रीमियम, और दैट्स व्हाट वी डिड। तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि न्यूज इंडस्ट्री के लिए ये जो कोविड टाइम था ये खराब नहीं रहा। इनफैक्ट इट गेव अस लॉट ऑफ एज on other genres.
आपके नीचे करीब 15 चैनल है न्यूज के?
जी, लगभग 15 चैनल्स हैं, अलग अलग
भाषाओं में है।
जी।
तो आपको एडवांटेज भी मिलता होगा सेलिंग में, पैकेजिंग की तरह,
जी बिल्कुल, उसका फायदा मिलता है, बिकॉज आप अगर एक नेटवर्क की तरह बेचते हैं अपने प्रोडक्ट को, तो आपकी रीच जो है वो 15 टाइम्स बढ़ जाती है। So it depends how your sales team presents your case when they meet the clients. But yes, definitely I would say that yes, we have a better position while we are selling, because we have a network, and here we must also talk about the digital network. We have a huge, very big digital network supporting the linear network.
तो मतलब कहाँ पे आपको ज्यादा ट्रैक्शन मिला है, डिजिटल साइड पे कि ब्रॉडकास्ट साइड पे? अभी रिसेंट
अनिल, ब्रॉडकास्ट साइड का ट्रैक्शन बताना बड़ा मुश्किल है, बिकॉज ब्रॉडकास्ट साइड में आपको यू आर हेवीली डिपेंडेंट ऑन बार्क रेटिंग्स, और बार्क रेटिंग्स अभी आपको क्या बता रही हैं इसके बारे में कोई भी ठीक से जानता नहीं। सो बार्क रेटिंग्स में मैंने ये देखा है कि एज अ जॉनर, news genre has increased by many folds. It had increased for a couple of months. It's now coming back and to the normal. लेकिन डिजिटली हम लोग, आप समझिए कि लगभग 100% बढ़ गए इस दौरान। तो 100% बढ़ने के बाद even if we are coming down, but we have retained almost 70 to 80% new customers. सो डिजिटली बहुत पुश मिला है, लेकिन उसका बड़ा कारण यह है कि डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म्स को यू कैन मॉनिटर ऑन रियल टाइम बेसिस, बट टीवी के अंदर ऐसा कोई अभी तक मापदंड नहीं है बार्क के अलावा, और बार्क रेटिंग्स आर ऑलरेडी बीइंग क्वेश्चनड ऑल ओवर।
क्वेश्चन नहीं, अभी तो बंद हो गए हैं कुछ समय के लिए न्यूज के लिए,
या अभी 12 हफ्ते के लिए तो बंद ही हो गए हैं, तो इस वक्त कहना बड़ा मुश्किल है। लेकिन तो भी जब बंद नहीं भी होते तो आई वाज वन ऑफ द फ्यू पीपल हु वर बीइंग इनसाइडर, I still used to question the authenticity of bark ratings, कि ये ratings कितनी सही आपको बताती हैं, and it's a very big question which I want to raise at your platform when all the professionals are watching us. Sample size इतना छोटा है, और जो हम बार बार एक प्रॉब्लम के बारे में बात करते हैं वो ये, आपको सारे न्यूज चैनल्स एक जैसे क्यों दिखते हैं, सबकी हेडलाइंस एक जैसी क्यों दिखती है, सबकी ब्रेकिंग न्यूज एक जैसी क्यों दिखती है? अगर आप जीईसीज को देखें तो हर जीईसी की अपनी एक अलग पहचान है, हर जीईसी की अपनी एक अलग प्रोग्रामिंग है। जीईसी क्या, सब कुछ, स्पोर्ट्स देख लीजिए, किड्स चैनल देख लीजिए, कोई भी चैनल देख लीजिए, सिर्फ न्यूज जॉनर में चैनल्स ऐसे हैं जिनकी अपनी कोई अलग पहचान नहीं है। यू विल फाइंड द सेम कंटेंट ऑल ओवर। उसकी बड़ी वजह यह है कि बार्क रेटिंग्स कंफ्यूज करते हैं एडिटर्स को, और एडिटर्स जो हैं अभी के और जो शो प्रोड्यूसर्स हैं, वो कई बार मैं सोचता हूं कि ये एडिटर्स हैं या ये फिल्म प्रोड्यूसर्स हैं, ये एंकर, न्यूज एंकर्स हैं या ये एक्टर्स हैं। तो दैट थिन लाइन हैज मर्ज्ड नाउ। सो ये एक बहुत चिंता की बात है जो हो रहा है। और जो 3 महीने मिले हैं, ये जो ब्रेक मिला है 12 हफ्ते का, इस ब्रेक को अगर सारे न्यूज चैनल्स अपने न्यूज रूम में अपनी टीम के साथ बैठें और ये सोचें कि हम अपना कंटेंट बाकी के कंपटीशन के साथ कैसे अलग बना सकते हैं एंड हाउ कैन वी मेक इट मोर ऑर्गेनिक, तो बहुत अच्छा होगा। अदरवाइज सबके ब्रेकफास्ट शोज एक जैसे क्यों दिखते हैं? हर चैनल सुबह सुबह ज्योतिष क्यों चलाता है? हर चैनल दोपहर में सास बहू के सीरियल्स के ऊपर शो क्यों चलाता है? हर चैनल शाम को 5 बजे 6 बजे एक जैसा डिबेट, एक जैसा सब्जेक्ट, एक जैसे गेस्ट पे क्यों करता है? इट्स अ वेरी बिग क्वेश्चन।
नहीं, वही मैं पूछ रहा था कल आनंद साहब को, और सब हमने ये प्रश्न राहुल कन्वर को भी किया, लेकिन सब ने कहा कि हम अलग हैं, हम सेम नहीं है, हमारा अप्रोच अलग है।
I think you should allow the viewers to decide how different each channel is. मेरे हिसाब से अगर आप मुझसे पूछें, सब चैनल एक जैसे दिखते हैं और हर न्यूज रूम में सारे चैनल सामने मॉनिटर पर लगे होते हैं एंड दे ऑल ट्राई टू कॉपी ईच अदर। एक चैनल ने एक खबर ब्रेक की, उसके बाद आप देखिए अगले 2 मिनट के अंदर सेम ब्रेकिंग न्यूज आपको हर चैनल पे मिलेगी, चाहे उनके रिपोर्टर्स ने उसको रिपोर्ट किया है या नहीं किया है। इसी तरीके से अगर आप देखेंगे जो डिबेट्स हैं, उन सब में लगभग एक ही विषय के ऊपर, एक ही सब्जेक्ट के ऊपर हर शाम को आपको डिबेट्स देखने को मिलते हैं। तो मैं किसी को ये नहीं कह रहा कि वो आपको गलत बता रहा है, हो सकता है उनको लगता हो कि वो अलग हैं, पर मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि पूरी इंडस्ट्री में इस वक्त किसी भी एक अलग चैनल की बहुत जरूरत है जो लीक से हटके। इनफैक्ट मैं तो ये कहूंगा कि न्यूज इंडस्ट्री जो है उसमें एक मिड कोर्स करेक्शन की बहुत बड़ी गुंजाइश है। यू शुड गो फॉर अ मिड कोर्स करेक्शन, उसको ठीक करना इस वक्त बहुत जरूरी है। अदरवाइज देश के जो लोग हैं वो न्यूज चैनल्स को भी एंटरटेनमेंट की तरह देखने लगेंगे और ट्रस्ट बहुत कम हो जाएगा।
लेकिन आप जो आप कह रहे हो बाग के बारे में, पुनीत साहब है बाग के चेयरपर्सन रहे हैं, तो उन्होंने, और जहां तक मुझे मालूम है स्टेटिस्टिकली जो भी उन्होंने किया है वो सही है। बहुत लोगों ने कहा है कि स्टेटिस्टिकली आप 5 लाख भी लगाओ, आपको सेम व्यूअरशिप रेटिंग्स मिलेंगे, कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा at all. Maybe there needs to be a better representation, maybe more boxes monitoring news, or maybe there should be better, that could be one solution. But statisticians have said that even if you put 5 lakh boxes, you'll get the same ratings, the same result.
ये तो अनिल, ये तो पता चलेगा। देखो न्यूज इंडस्ट्री 32,000 करोड़ की टीवी इंडस्ट्री है।
हाँ जी।
उसमें से न्यूज इंडस्ट्री लगभग 3,500-4,000 हजार की इंडस्ट्री है और टोटल हाउस होल्ड्स जो हैं जिनका सैंपलिंग आप कर रहे हैं वो है 44,000। उसमें से अगर आप न्यूज को, और बिकॉज एज वी ट्रेडिशनली से दैट 10% पीपल आर वाचिंग न्यूज आउट ऑफ द एंटायर टीवी यूनिवर्स, तो उसमें से अगर आप 10% निकालेंगे तो 4,400 बॉक्सेस हो गए, which is too less for such a huge market like India, 135 crore people watching news. लेकिन उसका एक बहुत बड़ा कारण मुझे ये लगता है कि इसीलिए न्यूज इंडस्ट्री एक हद के बाहर ग्रो नहीं कर पा रही है। क्यों सिर्फ 10% लोग न्यूज इंडस्ट्री को देखते हैं? दूसरी बात, अभी मैं जब आपसे बात करना, हमारी बातें शुरू नहीं हुई थी, तो मैं सोच रहा था आज आप जनता के पास जाएंगे तो आपको आम व्यूअर्स भी बता देंगे कि बार्क रेटिंग्स किस चैनल की क्या है, कौन सा चैनल न्यूज में नंबर 1 है, कौन नंबर 2 है। और सारे न्यूज चैनल्स हर थर्सडे को अपने बैनर कैप्शन सब लगाते हैं कि मैं नंबर, एवरीबॉडी क्लेम्स आई एम द न्यू नंबर 1। बट
कोई SEC AB, SEC 5+, SEC 15, AB 15+।
बट क्या आपने ये ट्रेंड GECs में देखा है? कभी आपने देखा है कि कोई GEC चैनल हर थर्सडे को नीचे ब्रेकिंग न्यूज चला रहा हो कि मैं नंबर 1 बन गया? आज आप जाकर लोगों से बात करके देख लीजिए, वो आपको ये बता नहीं पाएंगे कि GECs में कौन सा चैनल नंबर 1 है, कौन नंबर 2 है, कौन नंबर 5 है, स्पोर्ट्स में कौन सा चैनल है, या किड्स में कौन सा चैनल नंबर 1 है, क्योंकि दे नेवर एवर क्लेम लाइक दिस। ये जो
किसका दोष है? ये न्यूज चैनल्स का कि एडवर्टाइजिंग एजेंसी का कि ब्रांड्स का दोष? किसको दोषी ठहरा सकते?
आई थिंक दोनों का है। बार्क की गाइडलाइंस हैं कि आप एक हफ्ते की रेटिंग्स को कभी भी अपने चैनल पे फ्लैश नहीं कर सकते। एवरीबॉडी इज डूइंग इट। आपने देखा होगा बाकी गाइडलाइंस हैं कि यू नीड अ डेटा ऑफ मिनिमम 4 वीक्स बिफोर यू क्लेम योर पोजीशन। एवरी चैनल डज इट एवरी थर्सडे and nobody is stopping them. Advertisers are getting lured by such statements, or advertisers very blindly, when you go to them, rather than differentiating the product, they only ask they only ask for your bark ratings. वो bark rating आपने चाहे ज्योतिष लगा के कमाई हो, चाहे सास बहू लगा के कमाई हो न्यूज के नाम पे चाहे आपने और कुछ करके ली हो bark ratings, it doesn't matter to them. So मुझे लगता है कि मीडिया बायर्स जो हैं उनकी तरफ भी थोड़ी सी और ज्यादा मेहनत करने की जरूरत है. They need to move more organically. They need to study the brand. They need to study the product. मैं कौन सा प्रोडक्ट खरीद रहा हूँ, क्यों खरीद रहा हूँ, उसको कौन लोग देखते हैं. और वैसे भी आपको पता है जब ये रेटिंग्स का पूरा शुरू हुआ था पूरा सिस्टम, it was for advertisers. It was never meant for viewers. Today all these bark ratings are being used to influence the viewers.
वो सही है आपने जो बताया, लेकिन आपने देखा अभी जो पिछला सेशन था, मैं डैन से बात कर रहा था, वहाँ पे 3:30 सुबह के बजे वो बता रहा था कि नए नए टूल्स अवेलेबल मोनेटाइजेशन के लिए, और आपको खुद का रेटिंग भी मिल जाएगा मेगाफोन के जरिए. तो वुड दैट बी समथिंग दैट कुड हेल्प यू ऑल टेक अप मैसेजिंग टू द एडवर्टाइजर्स?
आई थिंक एडवर्टाइजर्स को भी थोड़ा सा इन्वेस्टमेंट अपना भी करना पड़ेगा, टाइम भी इन्वेस्ट करना पड़ेगा, थोड़े से एफर्ट्स इन्वेस्ट करने पड़ेंगे, और थोड़ा सा if they think it's required, then they need to invest in the technology also. But the problem is that there is no single technology which will be acceptable to everyone. So even if I invest in one particular technology to judge my viewership, maybe it will not be acceptable to the clients, the advertisers, and maybe some other channel will start using some other technology. So अगर technology use हो रही है तो then it has to be uniform.
जरूर, मैं बता रहा हूँ कि ये मेगाफोन की टीवी के थ्रू आप मोनेटाइज भी कर सकते हो, एंगेजमेंट, इंटरएक्टिविटी है.
Yeah, it is very interesting. I mean, we must use the latest tools.
Sure.
Cool. I completely agree with that.
I'll get on a call with you after that. But coming back again, ये जो TRP अभी बंद हुआ है, आपके यहाँ पे एडवर्टाइजिंग एजेंसी रिस्पॉन्स ठीक आ रहा है कि बातचीत चल रही है, और आपको क्या लगता है ये जो हॉलिडे मिला है उसके बाद में बदलाव आएगी कि वैसे ही रहेगी हमारी न्यूज की इंडस्ट्री?
If I look at my experience, I still feel nothing is going to change. If I go by my experience, if I look at as a very optimistic person, and whatever changes we are trying to bring in our own programming here in Z News, मुझे लगता है कि एटलीस्ट हमारा प्रोडक्ट थोड़ा सा बदलेगा. आई विल गिव यू वन एग्जांपल. जिस दिन ये रेटिंग्स बंद हुई, मैंने अपने शो में लोगों से ये पूछा कि इट इज अ वेरी कंस्ट्रक्टिव विंडो ऑफ 3 months फॉर अस टू इम्प्रूव आवर प्रोडक्ट. आप हमें बताइए कि आप क्या देखना चाहते हैं. एंड आई इन्वाइटेड सजेशंस. कई हजार सजेशंस आए, मेल्स वगैरह, और उसमें जो सबसे ऊपर जो पहली जो चीज लोगों ने लिखी वो ये था कि हम नौकरी और रोजगार के बारे में जानना चाहते हैं, हम एजुकेशन के बारे में जानना चाहते हैं, हम हेल्थ के बारे में जानना चाहते हैं, हम हमारी लाइफ में अपॉर्चुनिटीज क्या हो सकती हैं उसके बारे में जानना चाहते हैं. एंड वी ऑल्सो लाइक टू नो अबाउट आवर लोकल हीरोज, नॉट अबाउट सलमान खान एंड शाहरुख खान. व्हाट अबाउट आवर लोकल हीरोज? किसी बच्चे ने नीट में एग्जाम में टॉप किया है, या कोई और लोकल किसान है जिसने बहुत अच्छा काम किया है, इस तरह का. तो हमने वहां से क्यों लेते हुए तो हमने एक नया अभी सेगमेंट शुरू किया है जिसमें अब हमने लोगों को कहा है कि हम आपको हर रोज जी न्यूज पर रोजगार के बारे में जो अपॉर्चुनिटीज हैं, नौकरियां कहाँ कहाँ उपलब्ध हैं, वो हम आपको बताएंगे. कहाँ से आप लोन ले सकते हैं, कहाँ से आप स्किल डेवलपमेंट कर सकते हैं, कहाँ से आप जॉब्स ले सकते हैं, ये हम हर रोज आपको बताएंगे. लेट्स सी, इट्स अ वेरी स्मॉल एक्सपेरिमेंट.
It's a very good exercise. I think I've been propagating that, we need to have local coverage of even local cricket matches, which are important. Absolutely. So that, and having segments which are local news, पूरे देश को देखता है, और जो सेंटर से रिपोर्ट्स आती है, जो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट से रिपोर्ट्स आती है, उसके ऊपर कंसंट्रेट करते हैं. हम तालुके पे नहीं जाते हैं, बहुत बार हम लोग तो जाते ही नहीं.
सो अनिल, इट्स वेरी चैलेंजिंग, और ये एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है किसी भी न्यूज चैनल के लिए. इसीलिए आपने देखा होगा कि हमने आईपीएल को इतना बड़ा बना दिया, लेकिन हम रणजी ट्रॉफी को कभी बड़ा नहीं बना पाए. वी कुड नॉट ऐड दैट ग्लैमर इन रणजी ट्रॉफी, या हमारे जो और डोमेस्टिक टूर्नामेंट्स होते हैं, या हमारे जो और दूसरे स्पोर्ट्स हैं. तो एक बहुत बड़ा कारण है. और इस देश के अंदर 400 न्यूज चैनल्स हैं, उसके बाद भी हम बहुत सारी चीजों के साथ जस्टिस नहीं कर पाए. और वो सारे के सारे 400 न्यूज चैनल्स एक, जिसको कहते हैं ना, मधुमक्खी का छत्ता, बस एक छोटा सा उन्होंने, दे हैव अ किटी ऑफ से 10-20 इश्यूज एंड प्रोडक्ट्स, बस वो सब कुछ उसी में एक अपना अपना शेयर उसी पाई में से ले रहे हैं, but they are not exploring new grounds. We need to explore new grounds.
Fantastic. On that note, I hope your network explores new grounds. It's been fascinating chatting with you. Thank you for the openness, and I don't envy your position. You're the CEO of a listed company. You have challenges as far as even the share price is concerned, and as far as the share of voice with your viewers is concerned. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary and Mr. Vanwari, for that delightful exchange. Well, this brings us to the end of News Television Summit 2020. Once again, I would like to thank our co-powering partner, TVU Networks, for their immense support. On behalf of IndianTelevision.com Group, I would like to thank all the speakers and the viewers for taking out their time and joining us today. We hope that you had a fruitful time. If you have missed any of our sessions, you can log on to IndianTelevision.com to catch all of it. Do join us for the 9th edition of News Television Awards, where we will be rewarding the excellence in Indian news television on 6th of November. You can also follow us on social media platforms, Facebook and Twitter. Our handle is ITV News, that is ITVNEWZ. And on LinkedIn and Instagram, our handle is IndianTelevision.com. Once again, I thank you.